What's going on, guys? All right, we are in for a very special podcast tonight. We are doing another Twitter space, so we will see how this goes. Um, we have quite a few of the same people we had on last weekend. We got Monkey Business, Conway, King Diamond Hands, Howie, Charlie. We had two new ones. So I'm very excited to see what we have to cover today. We are going to be doing a lot of broad market talk, but I'm sure AMC and GME will get their way in there somewhere. As for me, I did tell everyone I'd give everyone kind of an update. I finally found a doctor. Yay me. She is actually competent and is helping quite a bit. I have a couple more scans to be done. Tracing it back to my C-spine. So I have to go do that. But other than that, I can't complain today. So I'm totally excited. And we'll keep you updated. But I am not sure exactly what everyone's going to be covering today. But I do want to say that I want everyone to be keeping their eyes on these random bills that the government are passing. If you haven't been actually reading through those bills. I know we do a lot of reading, the SEC filings and the DTC stuff and whatever. We got some more reading, right? Reading and comprehension and everything is going to be pretty vital, I think, for the next, it's vital for the rest of your life, but 6 months to a year coming up because, they're starting to post, the housing market's starting to slow down and there's a potential bubble and there's more people posting about, what's going to happen with the stock market and talking with, Dave Lauer and Bam on earlier this week. And, you have various people coming to the same conclusion different ways, right? Like, and that's kind of the crazy thing because, you figure insanity is doing the same thing and expecting to get a different result, right? And right now we're doing all different things and getting the same result. So I don't think we're crazy in this. We're looking at some interesting times coming up, and this is where for those that don't know and haven't listened to me before, I highly recommend looking for some land. Look for land that has fresh water, so like a creek or a pond or connected to a lake or something like that. Start figuring that out, and figuring out your shelter and figuring out how to garden and grow some stuff, because this was really cool with my grandmother. For those that kind of missed the tweet, I talked to her. She was born in 1930, and she has two older sisters. They grew up in Columbus, Ohio, and she is just a wealth of knowledge. Like, I've gotten some amazing stories. I'm very close with my grandmother, and I asked her, I said, do you remember what 1929 was like? Or, obviously she wouldn't remember that, but she'd remember stories, or, 1930s or 1940s after the wars and everything, during World War II. And my grandfather was actually in World War II. And so she said, well, and then, well, before that even, I said, what did great grandma and great grandpa ever tell you? And she said, absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. They did not tell us a thing. That was not how that worked. We were to sit down, shut up, and not be heard. And I believe that. I fully 100% believe that. And she said, but I, being me, kept my eyes and ears open so I would know exactly what happened throughout this time frame for moments like this. She's very intuitive, and she remembered back to about when she was 3 or 4, and she just turned 91, guys. She's doing great. And so she said when we were young, there were 7 of us, and it was 3 generations. Her her grandparents, her parents, and them. And then my mom said there was like some floating aunt or great aunt or someone. There was a floater that came and went sometimes. But they always rented. My great grandparents never owned a home. And they rented house to house throughout their entire adult lives. And they rented this big house that all 7 of them could live in. And she remembered that it had a lot of space, but there was no indoor toilet. Obviously, she said, I didn't have a flushable toilet until I was in the 7th grade, which I thought was pretty interesting. But they had cows and chickens that they, milked, and they, had their eggs, and sometimes they would, kill their chickens to have the protein. And um, my great grandfather raised a garden and uh, made sure that everyone, I guess it'd be my great great grandfather, uh, tended to the animals, and they all, the men milked the animals and the women got the chickens, and my grandmother remembered churning butter and making cottage cheese and like all this really cool stuff that, you forget, we take for granted. We get to go to the supermarket and uh, just pick it up, right? And so she remembers actually making all of it. And she said she remembered being at about 10 years old. So this would put it about 1940. Their average food cost was like $50 a month because they grew and raised their own food, and they had rain collection and stuff. And it was very interesting. So I asked her and I said, "Do you see us being in that time frame again?" And she said, "I can't imagine people actually knowing how to do this stuff anymore. People have gotten lazy." Mind you, she is a very sassy woman. You think I have a fireball some days. You know where I got it from. Um, but she said, and I said, "What do you have to say to people that are my age, maybe a little bit older, a little bit younger?" And she said, "Learn how to be self-sufficient. Learn how to live off grid. Learn how to do things on your own, because one day people won't do it for you." And that hit home. I was like, okay. And she said, "Well, what are you seeing?" And I said, "Well, I think we see times like 1929 again." She was, "Well, I don't doubt it. We see a lot of the same historical events." And so this is where I encourage everybody that's listening right now, if you guys can, our grandparents, our great grandparents, if they're still alive, please, 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 I'm begging you guys to reach out to them. Reach out to them, get their stories, because I mean, it's actually made her want to write down her stories that she's lived through and everything. Like I have my great grandmother's log, family history and everything. She was a genealogist, a smart woman. So you figure a genealogist that's traced our history back to like, I want to say 1500s, and this was before computers. Um, and she has all of her journal notes and everything, and to read those are just phenomenal. So, but reach out to your grandparents. I'd love to hear their stories from that time frame so that we can learn, right? We don't need history to repeat itself. We don't want people suffering the same way. If we have to go back to ration cards, all right, let's learn how to, grow grain and rice and vegetables and, barter system. Okay, well, these people have these vegetables and these people are raising livestock. Why don't we swap, right? And, it might be a thing. So it's something to think about. So, but I will hand it off to Lady and everybody else.
Well, thanks, Kenneth, so much. I think you brought up a really important thing, is that we should always be reviewing the history and seeing different things pop up, and so we can prepare for the future. But I know for a fact, I spoke to Charlie a little bit about just his studying of the market and the market history. And so, Charlie, are you there?
Yep.
Do you want to dive into that a little bit? Give us some information that you found?
Sure.
Is history repeating itself?
Basically, in my opinion, from what I've seen, it's been full circle. It all started with the Federal Reserve Bank in 1913. They were trying to gain access to a central bank, obviously, because you control the money supply, you control humanity. Since then, we've never had the means of technology we've had today to combat this kind of psychological control. And if you look, throughout the past, it's apparent that it's been, only getting worse over time, especially as technology, TV, and everything like that, radio became popular. But that's besides the point. The point is that if you look at the situation we're in now, and you look at how this all started, where do you see every day going on at 12:15 every day, between 12:15 and 12:45 Central Time? That is my time. The repo window, and who's the primary. Can you hear me? Sorry, my phone
Yeah,
cut
we
out
can
for a
hear
second.
you. Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah. So, anyways, at 12:15, you have all these transactions going on, these repo transactions, and there's several different kinds. There's tri-party, bilateral, reverse repo. There's joint accounts all over the place in these financial reports. And then you have the Federal Reserve is the one that's, initiating the service. So it's just full circle, in my opinion, because you see that inflation's at historic levels, you see the repo market's at historic levels. And to me, it kind of all ties into the beginning of everything. And, it's just how it all end. I don't know, but it sure has been interesting so far. And, we
So
have we
Charlie,
have it easy.
sorry, Charlie. Do you want to keep on? Sorry, Charlie.
Never heard that before.
Do you want to? So did you, with your studies into the market so far, and I know that it's so dynamic and changing every day, have you discovered anything with this last week that you're just like, okay, I want to drop some bombs here?
Well, I mean, I'm not at that point yet, but I've definitely found an area of concern that if anyone would like to look into, the data's out there. It's if you just go to Google and you type in MMF fund data, I believe it's the first website that comes up, the OFR, Office of Financial Research. You can dig into that, and it's very interesting regarding Fidelity and some of the anomalies in the data, and it has Excel export available and everything. So data is not my strong point by any means. So if you're someone that's into that kind of stuff and you like to map out data, definitely an area that I would look into. But as far as like dropping bombs, not there yet, but I definitely feel like it's an area that needs to be looked into because it's often dismissed as, oh, it's just working like it's supposed to. But again, historic inflation combined with historic repo levels, and it all seems to happen right when Gary Gensler took office in April around that time. So I don't know. It's just in this situation, I feel like no coincidence should be overlooked as a coincidence. It may not be. So I'll keep looking into it, but I guarantee you there's someone out there that could do it at a faster pace than me because my speed of building an Excel spreadsheet is not good.
Well, thanks. Does anybody else want to comment, Conway?
Yeah,
I don't
please.
know. Monkey business. Howie, Howie, we know that you have a lot of experience with the markets and stuff like that. So
I'm wondering one thing, Charlie.
Yeah.
Do you remember the exact date that the government Biden ended? Well, not ended, but made it crystal clear that the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac was not guaranteed by the United States government anymore, where they continued, if you will, to let the ball roll from 2008?
No, I don't recall exactly. I want to say
I think it was like April, May, something like that.
Or was it the year of, or was it the year before?
No, it was this year. I mean, it was just a couple months ago.
I thought you.
Yeah, that's when it all fell.
No,
I can say that on June 23rd, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac both took a ginormous nosedive. There you go. It dropped. Wow, man, a huge percentage, over 50%.
Yeah, and the stock and the bonds were 55 to 60% down.
Bonds? Yeah. I don't recall that. Which bonds are you talking about?
Anything that was backed by Fannie and Freddie. That's when.
Okay. Yeah. June 23rd.
Yep.
Interesting. Yeah, Fidelity had an agency lending account created on June 26th. I found that to be interesting also. It's where they can lend to institutions, whatever.
I'm pretty certain that, the repos, the reverse repos overnight, I think that those jumped right around that time, really started picking up speed.
Yeah, it was after that May or that February, March run up.
And then there was also, if you tie it all back to 2008, that the skeleton's in the closet. And I also believe that, around the pandemic at the beginning, I think Powell is kind of on our side. Besides,
You, as far as him being on our side?
Yeah, I think he is, with constantly buying up those treasuries, because the guys, all those like Solomon Brothers and all that shit with Citi, they're all short government bonds. and the government doesn't want that.
Yeah, City,
And
their 13F just came out 2 days ago, and they almost practically doubled down on GME. It's weird.
what, long or short?
Long on their shares. I think they're down on their puts by a little bit, and they're dead even on their puts, and they're up a little bit in their calls. And
But they're short. But they're short
yeah,
treasuries.
it's likely short marked as long, I would imagine. But yeah, I
Yeah,
find that
I'm
interesting.
imagining that GameStop is their hedge, but they're
Right.
fucked anyway.
I mean, all the big banks, all the players in the repo market, of course, have hedged positions in AMC and GameStop. So it's interesting.
Well, Citadel, I don't know if you were on any of the calls that we've talked on, but I heard a long time ago that when AMC was around $14-15, I had heard that, quote and unquote, they were going to be bringing AMC up, and I forgot where I heard it, but
Yeah,
I also what?
I agree because I mean I've always thought the time in May when AMC ran, if you looked at the options chain like during that period of time, you
It
just
was
saw
already full.
yeah you saw the gamma ramp just building in front of your eyes, and you're like, oh my God. This
Yeah,
thing
but it was Citadel taking positions on both
is already
sides.
induced, you know what I mean? Based on the data.
Real quick, I posted a chart of the overnight reverse repo. We can see the spike actually happened a couple days before Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. I don't know how to share it to this talk. Can somebody help me out with that?
Oh, you're on your own there. I have no idea. But if you notice, if you look on the overall chart from the New York Fed website, you'll notice like I think it's at the beginning or the end of April, you'll see like a big gap. Like it just goes straight down and you see a huge gap up. I thought that was
Yep.
strange too.
Yeah.
Hey, by the way, since you mentioned something regarding strange gaps, has anyone noticed what the I think it was the on balance volume? Anyone look at like the like I don't know 20-day 1 hour chart or 10-day 5 minutes or 15 minutes? Anyone look at that?
For what?
GameStop.
Okay, I can pull it up right now and take a look.
Well, the reason why I ask is I saw this. Do you remember the day when we got added into the mid cap 400? And you remember that monster volume that came in, and then that one block of 6.63 million shares that hit us back down. The on balance volume, if you look at it, completely broke to the negative side.
That's the arbitrage, man, from those ETFs in the rebalancing.
That was insane on
Yeah.
and I think that on balance volume, on that chart is bottoming out there. And I think that they're going to be doing something pretty interesting this week with the on balance volume, whether it's up, down, or both.
Yeah, I mean that day, if you look, I had it on my screen. I had the IJR ETF on one side. I had the GameStop on the other side, and you saw GameStop just go straight down, and at the same time, IJR was going straight up. It was the weirdest thing.
Yeah.
That's the free market, though.
Yeah, free my ass.
I want to see the rigged market.
Oh yeah, I would be definitely curious about that one. I mean, we all we know is the so-called free market. I mean,
Yeah, all these SROs driving all these people.
Yeah, I'll tell you one thing. I'm really, really, really looking forward to the collapse of at least the first bank. I'm really looking forward to that.
So, Howie, you love dates. I got to ask you a question here. Inverse ETFs.
Reverse ETFs. Oh, okay. There's derivatives in there. Go ahead.
Right. So, if I was to pick up a basket of these things and hedge a bet at some point,
it would be SQQQ most likely.
Yes.
Well, there's SQQQ and there's UVXY.
Well, UVXY in specific, but we could throw SQQQ in there too.
Right.
So, if you were a betting man, knowing, and this is not financial advice, I'm just a retard on Twitter.
You want to know what you would do?
where are we looking at potentially with everything we've been discussing in the past week? Do you think?
You know the truth, and this is a really logical truth, especially from everything that you've already learned from all the due diligence that's been out there. You cannot, I used to play the VIX back in the 90s and 2000. No, seriously. These markets today,
No.
even though they're the same charts, you cannot, you don't know
You'd be crazy to play
when,
it.
yeah, you're handing them, free money. You
VIX
already
is my
know,
favorite way to lose.
that the safest play in the entire market, probably in the entire universe at this point, is no offense or buts, GameStop.
Well, yeah, I mean, we broke the market.
So,
Congratulations, everyone.
Yeah, we broke the market.
Howie, I appreciate you saying something about that. So I'm going to take this moment, and I know people are probably either like, "What the hell is a VIX?" or they've maybe kind of heard it. So a lot of
By the
times,
way, a lot of people don't know, that are new to the market, because they always hear short the VIX and
yeah,
VIX and this and that.
yeah. So
Right.
I
There's
do.
also the VXN. If
Right.
anyone's
There's so many
there's a
different inverses. And so what I want you guys to understand is if we are talking about inverses, this is in no way, shape, or form. I mean, us
financial
saying
advice.
anything, do not even think about touching these damn things, because all
Horrible.
inverses they're meant to lose money. They're like, for me,
Yeah.
and what I say for my community is, their market, you watch them for the market, period, end of story. You don't think about touching it. You don't even want to look at touching it, because they're.
And the only reason I was bringing it up, especially amongst some of the faces that I see up here speaking right now, with sort of the dates that we're seeing right now, with banks and some of the info that's starting to come out about next quarter, I'm just curious if anybody's seen anyone hedging some bets on
Oh
this.
God, they've been doing it for a while. Like, so we've been
The
tracking
positions are there.
we've been tracking, the puts and everything on the SPY, the Dow, the NASDAQ. We've been tracking almost all of the inverses correlating to most of the market, real estate, commodities, the S&P and everything. Like, we've been tracking it. And so,
Are
like,
you tracking SRS and Farm?
yes, we are.
I have one last question, since September is coming up and whatever we're going in. Have you been tracking the puts on the airlines?
Oh my gosh. I haven't,
Oh, no.
and I really need to start tracking like Delta and all of the ones that said we're not going to force our employees to take the COVID shot. I'm curious. I'm doing a little field study on these. The
Yep.
ones that are forcing the ones and the ones that aren't forcing the ones. And I'm going to see what the population's actually saying about these two different groups. But the moral of the story is, yeah, they're the big players. We're talking Vanguard, BlackRock, Citadel, you name it. They're betting against the economy. And what I mean by that is they're having massive puts on our SPY, the NASDAQ, the Dow, and they are putting massive calls on the inverses.
Well,
Yeah, seriously.
I'm glad you mentioned that. I have, I think, Charlie, you've done the work on the SFTs, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I remember seeing that. By the way, oh, do I look forward to your work. Woo.
I appreciate that, bro.
Oh,
I'm just
seriously.
retarded, though, man.
That's like one of my highlights of the day. So I have, with all the stimulus, and remember how we were talking earlier that we know, I don't, even under the prior administration, Powell doesn't want the shorts shorting treasuries. Okay.
I would agree.
And that is very much what they are
And
doing.
and you know how they keep on throwing money and blowing these things up, and we're getting ballsier and more confident, and we keep on taking positions that the bad guys don't want us to do. Okay. I got a feeling, like you just said, they're taking huge positions on inverse, betting that the economy is going to tank. Call me crazy. Okay. And I know that certain numbers have not been reached, and each time, like the 5.4% inflation number, I got a sneaky suspicion everything opposite of what they think is going to happen. I got a sneaky suspicion we're actually not going to crash. With the SFT, if they do it, if they have it planned out the way they do, and you know better than I do, Charlie, because you've read it, but I'm just playing devil's advocate. What if they actually, bring these assets up and we have higher assets melt up? And, because the Fed always said that their goal is low inflation and full employment. And
Well,
they've actually proven that their real goal is asset inflation.
I can believe that.
I mean, they're stalling for sure, man. I mean, the SFT is, and it says it's in the filing. They say in the filing that they have no idea how much volume they're going to expect. Yeah, they're like, we have no idea if it's going to work. We have no idea how much volume we're going to expect, but we think it's going to mitigate this and this, and we think it's going to do this and this. It's creating basically a financial, a financing system for the FTDs. Instead of stuffing them and put somewhere, you can actually factor them into the systematic risk by accounting for them somehow. And it ties in the bank. There's a lot of changes coming up, man. And like we just had Vanguard's 13F came out today. UBS Group's 13F came out today. We had what was that one with all the puts in Brazil? They came out today. Barclays, Citigroup. I mean, they're all out. BlackRock is out. FMR is out. Goldman Sachs. They're all out. There's only a few left.
And by the way, just so you
quick.
know, Barclays bought Barings Bank back when they collapsed in 1996 from the trader in Singapore.
Oh yeah, dude, and they're loaded with puts on like the SPDR, man. Loaded with puts.
I got a sneaky suspicion this ain't crashing.
Well,
I would agree with that. Hang on real quick. I have I posted up some relevant charts and things into. Again, I don't know how to share it to the top of the screen here.
Oh, just tweet it out, Conway. If you tweet it out, and then if you go to share, and it'll bring up the call, and you can share it, and that'll put it up in the nest.
I think that's the problem on BlueStacks, and it's not letting me do that.
Oh, so if you tweeted it out, I'll do it.
Yeah, I tweeted out. Go to my profile. I tweeted out a bunch of charts. I tweeted out one about how hedge funds are positioned in terms of the bonds, and I tweeted out the thing that Howie was saying about GameStop being added to the S&P 400 and the OBV crashing, and what else? That's basically it for now. Yeah. About two things I wanted to contribute to the conversation, though, is that I agree. I don't think it would seem obvious that the government and the Fed doesn't want hedge funds shorting treasuries. If you go to that graph that I just posted from Hedgeopia, they shorted bonds to a 4 standard deviation net short position. This is an outrageous amount of shorting, and I don't see how this isn't money laundering or how this isn't counterfeiting money. Bonds are just, future dollars, because when they reach maturity, they become dollars essentially, right? And if you're shorting these bonds, you're shorting future dollars. You get the money now, but you're screwing the future, right? You're devaluing the future. So I've talked about this a bunch of times before. You would think that a priority for a government would be to have sovereignty over their own money. And on top of that, this is the United States dollar that we're talking about. We're the world reserve currency. So you would think that you would like to have control over the world reserve currency if you are the country that issues it. And I just don't understand how they let these hedge funds short bonds this heavily.
Well, hear me out.
Yeah.
What if there's a weird conspiracy theory, not conspiracy, like tinfoil theory? Like, what if GameStop's getting added to what, the MSCI later this month? MSCI midcap, another index, it's going to be added to it later this month. And then if we beat earnings, like S&P 500 is not impossible.
No, not at all.
It's not.
Save the market, bro.
We definitely could. And on top of that, what if the institutions that position themselves short by buying a shit ton of puts, what if they're the ones that get rug pulled?
Exactly.
Right? Because that's
it, dude.
That's the thing that Is when there's a lot of fear, you get rug pulled, and then it goes even higher.
Yeah. So think about that. They're backwards on GameStop. They're backwards
Yeah.
on Treasury bonds, and they're backwards on S&P puts. I mean, this is everything that the government would want, especially if we eventually move to blockchain type technology, where I mean, as I like to say it, you know, and keep in mind whoever's listening on this call, okay, I am an ex-stockbroker from 1995 to 2002. And I can tell you that, yes, it was the greatest job in the world. Talk about not working and having fun and playing liar's poker in the basement after hours, betting, you know, up to $1,000, you know, and, you know, losing. I mean, it was just a phenomenal thing. But all we did was take money from the inside. And at least I was an ethical broker. I brought no value, if you will. The value that people like you bring, the people doing all the due diligence, you are doing more of a service just in one DD than anything that we really did back in the 90s. I mean, that's saying a lot. And I've said this before, and I'll say it on every call. I have been waiting for this movement for 30 years. And that's all I'll say about that.
Hell yeah.
I can't imagine how good that has to be I mean, to be human.
God.
And I know you're going through some shit in your personal life, but this has got to feel for you just unbelievable.
Matter of fact, you know, and I know, King, you don't like dates, but I love dates.
Oh, I like dates. I do like dates. I do. I really do.
Give us your rant.
I've heard something about September 8th.
Dude, there's literally 8 dates coming up with different shit coming out. There's like
August,
the CAT, the CT plan, the SFT plan.
Well, even besides that, don't forget, if you look at Roaring Kitty's tweet times, you know, you'll see like 9-1, 9-3, you know, they're all in there. But I want this. What?
Sorry. We're starting and stopping, but yeah, and also GME earnings are going to be that second week of September, and the current forecasts, and I know just from the amount that I spend there, they're going over the top. I mean,
way over the top. But
don't
forget, they changed their accounting method, if you remember, in the last earnings report. You remember that? Because I forgot.
The vote they voted on. Well, no, hold on. I thought they voted to keep the same practice.
No. I forgot what it's called. I can't think of the word right now. But it's when you change not necessarily accounting, but the way they're reporting, because they're going to be, you know, when you spend money on growth, you're going to show losses, like for instance, what Amazon did for about 25 years, you know, and then all of a sudden they had earnings, and then they
I know what you're saying.
I describe it. Okay, this was in that file. I know what you're talking about now. Let me.
I can't think of the word.
Second, I'm gonna go check this out. I'll be right back.
Yeah, I'm not very eloquent and articulate with certain words, but I'm expecting them to. I mean, you gamers, you dedicated. I have never seen loyalty. You know, I mean, it kind of reminds me, if anyone ever saw that movie Up in the Air with Harrison Ford. You know, and he was trying to get those like what was it, 10 million frequent flyer miles, and you know they said loyalty. You know, this is such a loyal customer base. It is insane.
Well, Howie,
you rushed in and saved this company. It took over the shares. It's just miraculous.
Howie, the thing I joke about with the GameStop investors and everything, most of us are gamers, right? Like we play games. They picked a battle with people that will willingly sit through, and I'm using Halo as an example, multiple gamings. Oh,
Technology.
well, multiple. They're betting against people that will sit through a multi-series video game that ruthlessly beats the crap out of you, and then repeat that same game on different levels because we are
We
just
enjoy
that.
it. We
So
enjoy it.
we enjoy it.
Yeah.
We are
Dark
gluttons,
Souls
gluttons for
I
punishment
pain.
here.
I no
thought the same Dark
I
Souls
try to
was.
explain this. I try to explain this to people, and I'm like, you know, we had COVID. They handed out money. You know, people for the first time said, "Hey, I'll jump in." You know, buy the dip. You know, I remember that in 2008, and I remember right. And you know I've never even seen Robinhood on a phone. I won't even put that app on my phone. You know, and it's like a fucking video game. It's like me playing Words with Friends, or you know, or in my day Galaga on my phone, and I would just play constantly, you know. And
Oh
and
yeah.
I'm gonna
and this is the
slightly
greatest video game in the history of mankind.
I'm gonna slightly disagree with you there. I would say that Robinhood is more like a casino. Like you walk
Well,
up to a casino like a slot machine, right? There's all these flashing lights and things that grab your attention. That's what Robinhood is. You make a trade, there's like confetti that flies on the screen, and it's
oh
rewarding you.
really?
Like, yeah, my background is in psychology, so like
Oh,
that's playing on the dopaminergic feedback loop that is your reward center, right? And you make money and the confetti flies, and that's great. And then you lose some, and then they tell you to do it again. There's a reason that since Robinhood came onto the market, that shares have traded something like 44 times more frequently than normal, and options have traded 88 times more than normal. And on top of that, you've got
no,
these
no, no,
markets.
no, no, no,
You've
no,
got
no, no, no.
that.
If you think if you I'm sorry to interrupt, but if you think that the trading on Robinhood is individual investors,
No, I'm not
I
saying
got a
that.
bridge to sell you in Brooklyn. Okay, let me tell you
Yeah,
something. That whole thing was an absolute setup. And then when it tanked, Kathy Woods went in. Kramer starts pumping it. Then it hits 70 or whatever the fuck it hit, and he's like, "Oh, aren't you glad I recommended?" And if you don't think that Citadel and Steve Cohen and
that's not what I'm
all
talking
these
about at
fucks
all.
were positioned in those calls in advance, that's
Yeah, no, that like I agree with everything that you
uh,
just said, but it's a different topic. What I'm
okay.
saying is that since Robinhood got invented, right? Trading shares has increased and options have increased, and they've increased by a lot. Okay, trading options increased something like 88 times normal volume compared to pre-Robinhood era to post-Robinhood era. Okay, and meanwhile, these market makers, they're making money on the bid and the ask. They're making money on the volatility. They're making money on payment for order flow. They're making money on payment for contract delivery. Like they're just
Oh,
making money.
and premium erosion.
Yeah, and premium
Don't
and
think.
premium erosion. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
By the way, don't think for a second that these calls and puts are being sold by them naked. Okay, without, if you will, the assets to back, the same way that they've
Mhm.
been selling naked shares, and 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 everybody uses the word naked. Let's call it what they will. They are. I call them counterfeited shares.
Yeah.
Okay, you know, it's not like, you know, saying cancel culture or anything. Let's call it what it is. They're counterfeited shares. They are illegal ways to steal money, and that's what it is. And you know, when people say that they're hiding in ETFs or so, they might be placing them in there, but I don't even think, right, like we saw the smallest volume day in how many years? Okay,
I
and
think history. Well,
yeah,
besides earlier this week.
and
2006.
I'm pretty certain
Okay.
that GameStop was not being shorted today. I think that the market makers are just simply moving the price based upon demand so that they can figure out, calculated, you know, with these algorithms, where the best pricing for them to make money on the puts, make money on the calls, and still not cover any stock. I mean, I honestly believe that these aren't even shorts. They're just dropping prices based upon psychological things. You know, it's kind of like what they've done with Bitcoin. I mean, they're all the
The
same algorithm, same people.
the Max Payne theory would contest against that. And because I mean we've had this conversation previously in various different other spaces. So that's one thing I actually have been following personally. And while a few actually may disagree with me, it's very consistently on every single Friday the share price has ended plus or minus, or well, actually a little bit minus about $5 from the Max Payne. So that I would have to disagree with you about how they're trying to optimize money with their options when it's because of the Max Payne showing the exact opposite of that statement.
But
My
sometimes
my question is, how did
they
this
could
Max
go
Payne
long.
theory get revived? Because this Max Payne theory was an old DD that happened probably on like r/GME, like back before that blew up and we all moved to Superstonk.
Well,
I mean, I
And
would just,
I thought
it's
that got debunked.
Yeah, but
it was,
Max
but
Payne's been around for a long time. It changes as they move the stock, depending upon the positions that they put themselves in
Yeah.
advance for that.
Yeah.
So, like,
I mean,
I
that's the
mean,
definition of
have
Max
you
Payne,
ever
though.
seen Tesla go up like $40 on a Friday back in the day last year?
Yeah, I remember those days. Those were
Yeah,
great.
right. So like I mean, for honestly, I was actually shocked today that what were we up like 27 cents?
Yeah, we were barely up, but we were
When
up.
was the last Green Friday that you remember?
Yeah, it's been a
well,
while.
but I'll tell you this. I mean, that Max Payne theory even was adjusted in the last at 3:59. I watched it close at 162.53.
Yep.
5 minutes later, it was adjusted to 162.50. I had a tweet
Yeah.
30 minutes before the market closed. Max Payne 162.50 this week. I mean, I don't think the theory's debunked at all. I think that there was a time when it was being used as kind of a hard rule, whereas, again, this is the most manipulated stock on planet Earth. You
History.
cannot define conditions with it
Yeah.
like that.
So I personally did a DD into the Max Payne thing, and it seemed way more consistent with AMC. I posted it onto Twitter. I'm gonna have to dig deep to see if I can even still find it
Well,
anymore.
that's because what I said earlier. When I had heard at $15 somewhere around there that Citadel was going to be bringing it up, you know, when they take themselves in a position, you could see how fast that they move the stock, whether or not there's buyers or not. They did the same thing with AMC from 15 to 77. It's like a shooting rocket. They did it with a bunch of those biotechs, and I'm not even talking the vaccines. Um, they every stock in the market, every stock in the market, even Disney today. I mean, if you saw it pop up on the earnings and then sell off throughout the day, they did that to Salesforce.com when they popped the stock back last year to 284, and they kept it doing like a rounding bottom, over the past year. I mean, they're using every single stock as ways to hold us back. GameStop is just like that green circle in the red sea of down. If anyone's seen that picture, or it it is the center of the universe right now. It is.
Yeah, it
So,
certainly feels that way.
so Howie, I wanted to jump in there, and as a Galaga player myself, I'll age myself there with you. You guys were all talking about the VIX there earlier. It took me a little while to get the mic, but I learned a huge lesson for the VIX, and it certainly wasn't shorted. I had been bag holding for a long, long time, looking for that black swan event, and knew it was coming for the longest time ever, and just wanted to share the lesson that I learned. When COVID was hitting last year, I was up like 9 grand one day, and then the following day, it dropped down, and I was only up 4 grand, and I was like, well, I got to get out of this, and I sold everything at once, and then the very next day after, it peaked, and I would have been up over 40 grand in my position. So I left 36 grand on the table because I just got nervous and had
because
been holding the
deri-
bag for too long. So
and
don't do that.
the derivatives can eat away and erode at
Yep.
that profit. So you have to sell it on that pop, even if it pops higher. You have no choice
Yeah.
because it could go to 25 and 50, open up at 15 the next day. It really could.
I
Yeah,
doubled down,
you
triple down, quadruple down, quintuple down. I held.
Oh my God.
I held, because I knew the black swan was coming. I just was like Burry. I was like 5 years ahead of time.
Well, guess what? I did the same thing on the SRS in 2008. You know, you know the SRS, short real estate.
Okay, yeah, I'm not familiar with. I know what you're saying,
That's
but
an
I'm
it's an yeah
not that
an
particular.
It's
inverse
an
Yeah.
real
inverse.
estate ETF, right? Yeah.
So now in 2008, that thing popped and then tanked. Now, if you look at a chart of it now, from now all the way back then, what those numbers were equivalent to, based upon the erosion, is just absolute nightmare. I mean, it's like buying fuel cell in 2000 on Kramer's recommendation, before the dot-com crash, and then years later split adjusted because it did like a couple of reverse stock splits. That's like $6,000. It's like, really, I had that much money in that thing. I mean, it's ridiculous. So anyway, turn it over.
Litharium, do you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, it's been kind of on my mind. I watched Charlie's vid, which actually even kind of reinforced it for me a bit, was when Gary Gensler was saying they were running simulations on how all these margin calls could happen and things like this could happen. And it just kept bugging me for days about simulations. And then when Hood came out and it dropped the first day, it, not that it surprised me, but then the next day it went back up, and it was all crazy and everybody was talking about it. I just feel that they're running simulations on us to see what we'll do and what we'll say afterwards. Like, if they're following us on Reddit and they're watching us on Twitter, they're going to say, well, what do we think they're going to do here? Because they're trying to predict what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And they want to learn what we're going to do. So they have all the money in the world and they have all the tricks in the world. They're going to eventually figure it out or know close to it.
Except for one thing.
So wondering, running simulations
They're
and
ending there.
So those are two different things you're discussing about. Running simulations is different from data collection. So when they say running simulations are margin, they're probably performing a thing called oh my gosh, it's not mark a cog change, it's something else, where essentially they run so you have a model and then you throw a bunch of variables in. You can change the type of variables that you're using, but then within that you run that specific model like a gazillion times, and it's because you're using a predictability type of equation to figure out what's going to happen. But so that's one thing. It's very different from the data collection that you're referring to within Robinhood. The first thing you have to do the data collection, and then from there you can make predictive assumptions or predictions, pardon me, as to what will happen. I mean, I wouldn't say necessarily Robin specifically. They're necessarily doing data collection. I think that entire thing was nothing but vindication just doing it just out of spite, and also the assumption that these bunch of dumbasses are, excuse me, I don't mean, are a bunch of apes are not smart enough to know that we're planning this trick, and they have a lot of spite towards us. And so I think that was more so a result of just being raw anger, and within that raw emotional state, they predicted incorrectly.
Well, I mean, we can think of it as narrow or as broad as you like. I mean, even Howie was saying every stock is manipulated, and
Every
they
stock.
could look, yeah, they could look at every genre. I mean, they have hundreds of people working for them, so I mean, it's as broad or as narrow as you want to look at it, or as they want to look at it. For me, it just bugged me when Gary was saying simulation, and then it was like
No.
everything's simulated.
See, here's the thing about
I
that.
mean, I I guess one thing that would be beneficial is to clarify what's your definition of manipulation? Can you give me examples? Because I believe that that term varies extra. Like I want to say the word eclectic, but I think how that term is used can vary from person to person. So therefore, I think it'd be beneficial if you could clarify what you mean by that specifically, or give examples.
Oh, like I said, it's just more of a rolling thought for me, which was bugging me, is that just the generalization once simulation was brought in, it just made me think of like, what are hedge funds trying to get into our heads? And they've had all this time. They've had months, more than 6 months.
Except for one thing, Lithium.
Yeah.
Here's what I think on. I think I heard the first part that you were actually thinking about, Gary Gensler and the simulation comment.
Yeah.
And you're concerned about the hedge funds and all of our enemies, whoever they are out there, whether or not they're market makers or bank prime brokers and banks. I think that the rules that the SEC is putting in place, and Charlie could definitely point to that. But besides the SEC, the NSCC, I think that they've all come to the conclusion that these people are the bad guys and they are going to go away, and they're not going to have the time to benefit from whatever they think they're learning, because they are in their own bubble thinking that they're going to get away with this, or they've been told that they're not, and they're still throwing temper tantrums. So I'm expecting, honestly, this week coming up, if you think that the ride from 344 down to 240 was hard, and then this monotonous drip lower, buckle up, because I think everything is on the table this week. I mean, we've already won as long as you
We
don't
have.
sell. We've already won, even if everybody on this call doesn't buy another share. Their only way out is, getting the stops, plunging and salvaging whatever they could out of their puts. I mean, the worst case scenario, they drop the stock. Let's just say, I mean, my number is higher, but say they drop the stock to 25, which is what we have in cash. Okay. And they get out of all their puts in every different options chain that are left. They fill those stops and they start exercising all the calls on the way up. They still, no matter how many calls there are, they would force to squeeze themselves
I don't believe
out
that
of the
you're. I mean,
what?
I do not believe that they're capable of dropping it below $25 or even
No,
160. And I believe that, all right, so therefore, I guess I just would like to chime in is that I think that I mean, the minimum share price that we will see is exactly the 160 because it's the same share price we saw in the last 90 days as well. This is the minimum that they're able to drop it, either because the computations or the type of algorithms that are being used are programmed like that, which I believe is the main cause, or because just retail buying price, which is arguably a independent variable within the algorithm itself. I'm willing
I
to
agree with
place,
all that.
yeah. So
I
I
agree.
mean, I'm just merely commenting about how, I mean, sorry. Let me allow. Sorry, you should finish.
No, what I'm trying to get at is, whatever scenario that we're used to, expect something that we're not used to, and prepare for the worst and hope for the best. My point is, like, that kid in, I think it was in London, who did the flash crash in 2010, 1987. They take the bids away. I mean, there's just no bids. So whatever the machines are saying or doing, they do it all in a split second at once. So even if that's not the number, I'm just saying, anything, we don't have to worry because GameStop is 100% cash purchase. None of us own it on margin. None. Okay. They have to have 8-1 to cover, and it's being changed on the first is what Charlie came up with, the 25-1. Just expect that they could throw anything. We could have a cyber attack, quote and unquote. You may not have access to your trading platform and open your eyes and be like, what the fuck happened?
I mean,
You know
arguably, they
I
already done
think about
that.
that a lot.
I mean,
what?
they've already done the attack within the app itself. That's why we see the Robinhood. And then they've also done the attack on the internet, like a few like weeks ago, I believe, where they multiple hubs or main cities actually were incapable, were unable to log
Right.
into the Philippines. I mean, so these are all like type of potential outliers.
But let me tell you something. This is not only since Robinhood. When I was a stockbroker at UBS Payne Weber, I remember like when big moves, I had a stock move $32 in a day and I had 340 laddered calls. Okay. And all of a sudden the damn thing broke down. Okay. I mean, the entire screen system throughout UBS Payne Weber went down. The wire operator, that's how we used to drop tickets back in the good old days. I mean, these things did happen even back then. So that's what I'm trying to say. I mean, I've never been on Robinhood, but my trading app has definitely not allowed me to sign in, or didn't bring up the screen, for 20 years.
Hey, Howie, how you doing? I don't mean to interrupt, but I got a few questions. If you guys could oblige me.
Yeah,
Of
what's
course.
up?
What's going on?
Well, one, there's a lot of things I don't understand. I've been following for a while, and one, every day everybody keeps talking about the shares they're borrowing, shares to borrow, and drop the price, right? So
Yep.
when the hell are they buying these shares back?
They're
Well, that's the
not.
thing. They're not, right? So
But how? It's millions.
yeah. So this is how broken short selling is, right? Typically, you would think that you borrow one thing and you sell it, and then that's it. You just have to eventually buy that thing back and return it to the person you borrowed it from, right? But through a
Yep.
process called rehypothecation, they can hypothetically say, "Hey, do you have this thing that I can borrow?" And they say, "Yes, I have it." You're like, "Great." And then they short sell it, and then they can do that almost endlessly as long as there's somebody that
But
says that they have shares and that you can borrow it.
but
They
Well, if there's
potentially
a cap on
short
it
sell it
in the United
endlessly.
States,
Short sell it.
if they're 4 times the float, right?
Yeah.
Say we're 4 times the float. How the hell could they keep doing this?
Yeah, as long as they have shares to borrow, they can attempt to keep doing it. But there's
the
all
whole
sorts of
market
other
is fake.
things.
Mango Steel.
Yes.
It's Howie. I noticed that you're from New Jersey.
How do you know?
I looked you up.
Okay.
The long
So
story short is it's crime. Long story
and
short,
that's
that's all you need to know. Like, it doesn't matter
and
how they do it. I mean, legally they can't, a bunch of other stuff they can't. They do it because they can, and it's crime.
Yeah, but they're
and that's
digging
what
the
I
hole
was going to
deeper.
say,
It doesn't.
Mango. You're
The
from
end game.
Jersey,
Yeah, the end game doesn't make sense for them. But yeah, I'm from Jersey.
I mean,
right? So
I think
so
the
you
repo
should
market's
you should
legal there
understand
statewide.
about this kind of crime, you know. And but it was a
Organized
joke.
crime.
It was a joke. So
Yeah.
so here's the thing. When I was a broker, okay, I never really liked shorting or doing anything like that. Okay, infinite against you is a really bad concept.
Yep.
Okay, so I did have a client once in my career, 7 years, ask me to short a stock, and I didn't know how, so I asked my branch manager. So I get on the phone and I have to call the borrow desk. I had to call the borrow desk in New York and ask them if they had the stock available. Okay, I'll never forget it because it just was so uncomfortable and it just made no sense. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be a process. And and I had to call up and find out if the stock was available and if I could take it down. Those were the words. Okay,
Yeah.
so what they're doing is just simply based upon the options chains. All these years ago since the company came public. And the first failure to deliver was reported when they started the failure to delivers in 2005 at 1.25 million shares. Okay, all they're doing is saying, well, I don't have the really time because it's split seconds on an algorithm, and I'm just going to create a share out of thin air, and
That's
that's
how
what
they
they
got
did.
in this mess in the first place. How could they be this stupid to keep doing it? We're not
Well,
leaving.
the
Well,
revolving doors through the SEC, through the brokers, through the government, through the lobbyists. I mean, come on.
It's not.
I know.
I would
I, I,
argue that it's not necessarily that that's stupid. It's more so that they got away with it once, and because they did so, they continue to do it. Now because there's a bunch of stuff to prevent them to do it, it seems stupid. But because their plans previously was successful, it wasn't that stupid. Stupidity is defined by the success of the result.
Stupid is, stupid does.
yeah,
Yep.
I mean, it's they could get away with it like 99.999% of the time. We're like the 0.001% or whatever of
no,
the
I
times.
And to just go into the fundamentals of why this is, literally game stopped.
Yeah.
You are now talking about a situation in which the biggest financial players in the world have no way out. There's
That's what I'm
nowhere to
saying.
go. So, well, right. So the only thing they can do is continue burying themselves because it doesn't matter. If this thing explodes, they're already done. They're fucked. So
That's what they're doing, King.
They're
Burying
already
yourself
fucked.
more.
They know it.
I,
right.
I
So they're
just,
gonna keep going. And just like Pone said, I mean,
Yeah.
the answer is crime. That's all it is. This is organized crime. It's a big racket. It's a big club, and you ain't in it. Just
Yeah.
like George
I mean,
Carlin said.
Actually,
they
we
can
are
try to
in
make
it.
things right? They
We're
can try
taking
to
it
cover,
back.
but then they're dead, right? They're just bankrupt, right? So
Well,
then they're
that's
bankrupt already.
Sorry, go
Then
ahead.
then if it's cheaper to dig the hole even deeper and survive another day, as Ken Griffin has said in interviews and speeches or whatever, then that's what they're going to do.
except that the lines are being drawn by the SEC, the NSCC, the DTCC. Their days are over.
Yeah, their days are numbered.
Yeah, I mean, they know it. I mean, Ken Griffin knew it when he sold those 3 properties for a 23% loss. Okay,
so
I mean, they're already. I guarantee that all these people in the Hamptons, unless they're really fucking really dumb, I bet. I
Conway, can you
bet
mute your mic,
that
please? Thank you.
who? That was not me.
Oh no, it was
Conway.
Conway.
That was me. My bad.
Oh, so I'm quite certain that these people are already preparing, for the end of days for them.
I hope so. I hope so, because it doesn't make sense, Howie. If that's
So
their plan, I can't imagine.
I do have a question that's coming through my DMs. Someone wanting us to confirm this or deny it. David Starsky has sent this over. It's a Reddit post. It said, I did some research into inverse repos and found this on the Federal Reserve publication source and comment. And it says reverse RPs and matched book transactions. Major dealers commonly use reverse RPs and to establish the cover short position and obtain specific issues for delivery to customers. This practice is similar to securities borrowing arrangements in which the dealer obtains securities in exchange for funds, other securities, or a letter of credit. Reverses are typically cheaper, however, and provide greater flexibility in the use of collateral, and that they can be arranged for fixed maturities, while borrowing arrangements usually may be terminated on a day's notice at the options of security lender. Does anybody know if that can be validated or not?
Can you send that to me?
Yeah, I can.
Also, sorry about the microphone situation.
No,
You
it's
can
cool.
mute me. I'm not going to take it personally. Sometimes I forget to turn it off, so just mute me next time.
It's perfectly fine. But yeah, so basically, like, what I'm seeing, and I'll actually just tweet this out and put it up in the nest for you guys, so you guys can all see it. So yeah, something about, you know, the RPs being used to cover is the thing. That's what I'm gathering.
Are they covering with no price increase? Is that what they're trying to say?
Well, here, I'm putting it up in the nest right now. So if you guys want to go look at the Reddit post and dive into that one, I think that'll be a great one. Oh, and a speaker. And I will take this moment while they are looking through that, since now I can actually talk. I do have a special project that I am going to be trying to do. And I've talked it over with the team and everything.
I can hear you. Hold on one sec.
Can you hear me, Silver? Hi ho, Silver. Can you hear me?
I just muted him by accident.
Oh,
sorry.
okay. So we are under a major task, and this is kind of my SOS out to the community. If you know someone that can help or know of these people that I'm trying to get in contact with, I would like to try to get as many governors and or senators or any other congressmen or government officials onto the BullHouse podcast to discuss the broad market, their ideas, how they see it, what they believe in. And, you know, it's never going to be anything. This is where I'm going to start off every one of those podcasts with whatever they say is not the belief of BullHouse. We are just trying to get a vast knowledge of what is going on. And I am, I would like, Rand Paul. I want, gosh, I have all of them. I would love my own Florida representatives, Governor DeSantis and Marco Rubio. Sorry,
Rubio Marco.
my brain is gone, guys. I'm sorry. And I'm trying to get out to Alaska and Hawaii and Puerto Rico and Guam. This is kind of the funny thing with the Guam tweet. This is why me and my husband were talking about Guam, because we were like, yeah, how is Guam doing out there? So and I'm trying to make it as even as possible too. I don't want just all, Republican leaning, states. I don't want all Democrat leaning states. I want a nice big mixture of both so that we can have a very even keel discussion about what's going on and see where everyone's kind of sitting. And the reason I say Rand Paul is there's a video that of him kind of schooling Congress about quails, that the sexual enhancement of quails under meth or something like that. Like our government was spending money. Oh my gosh. Our government was trying to spend money on this thing to try to figure out if quails are more sexually promiscuous under meth. And I'm like, why? Why are we spending money on this?
Well,
So
Yeah, but that was a total Rand Paul gaslighting, and
Yes,
well,
we
still,
always said
I
that.
mean, I know.
he was way misinformed, and he's not going to come on because he doesn't want to talk about his wife's trade that he didn't talk
And
Oh
about
no, and that
on
so
Gilead
this is
for
where,
Gilead
hey
16
guys,
months ago filed this week.
let
Give
me
me a
let me
break.
let me have the stage back. So this is where I have three questions. I will not ask about anything that's in the media. I'm not going to ask them about, any of these, the governors or the senators or anyone. That they will be asked three main questions, and if they, how are your states doing? How has COVID affected any kind of economic stance, and how in the future, in the next 2 to 5 years, what do you see the impacts being, and how will they recover? What is a plan, and how can your constituents plan for it? Basically, those few questions. That's it. And there's nothing personal. I just want broad
Great
market.
questions.
I just want broad market information from the people that are running these states. And so that's my goal here. So if anybody can help me with it, I would.
They're buying GameStop. Have you seen it?
So
Yep.
one thing I would like to ask, for your first question, it was how is your state doing? That's a very big question. So I would suggest you add how is your state doing in specific fields or aspects,
Well,
just
yeah,
to
it'd be
shorten
the
down.
how are they doing economically? How is the state doing economically at
How are the
that date?
people?
well,
How are the
Kentucky is
people in the
Kentucky
state
is a
doing
welfare state,
economically?
so they take more from the federal government than they put in. But Rand wouldn't admit that.
See, that's the other problem I was going to get to, Kenna.
Uh-huh.
With those are great questions. The biggest problem that you have is, you know, whichever party that you lean in. I mean, I'm disappointed with some of the things that I've seen in the party that I support lately, but I do believe that none of these people are going to give you the answers except for the younger generation of people that are in there.
Right, and that's
It
fine.
it's a big club.
Well, of course, they're not going to give you answers, and if so, they'll probably only give you answers that you would like to hear. I mean, usually the younger ones are the ones that want to change, and therefore they provide their answers. If the opportunity does present itself, will you have the attention of one of these leadership type people? I can sense that you have ultimately a specific topic that you want to address, and so I would also again suggest that have more specific questions, because how's your economy doing? Yes, well, that's a very big question. There's multiple different economies going on. I mean, you're talking about the workplace economy, or you're talking about the ins and outs economy, interstitial trade and such like that. Because I can sense that
I mean, they
if
can
you
answer
look
all
at
of that
more,
if they want to. I mean, and that's the thing is
I,
that
I,
so the thing with BullHouse, what I'm trying to do, when it comes to our guest speakers or any of these, the senators or anyone, the thing that they run into with like CNN or anything like that, they're cut down what 15 minutes maybe, and so it's like I want to give them a chance to just get it out, get what they think out, what they're feeling out, whatever, and not cut them off. Basically, I would hand them a list of questions. If as a community we want to come up with 5, 10 general questions that every one of them can be asked at the same, that applies to every state, or 3 general questions, and then maybe like 7 that we find for each state. People that are like, oh, I'm from California, I want these questions answered. I'm from Texas, I want these answers, whatever. Let that happen, because guess what? They're all up for re-election very soon. They're all coming up on that, and they're going to want that time frame.
I mean, not to be a negative Nancy in regards to that. I mean, it'd be I would say that, I mean, good luck with that venture. But given how every single one of us, although there may be a lot of people on the specific chat, we all come from different areas, and so therefore we ourselves do not have enough. We wouldn't attract enough attention in order to doing that. I mean, good luck,
We
and I
can,
don't want to be a
yeah.
negative Nancy,
People
but
No,
don't.
and
Well, people don't
it's a
participate enough
it
in
is a
commenting, especially.
yeah, it's a big feat. I'm not gonna lie. I'm kind of intimidated by
No,
it,
seriously. I
but
mean, do you know how easy it is to go online and leave a comment for all these rules we've seen come out and like some of the amendments? You can go online so easily and leave a comment and give your opinion, and the SEC may or may not listen, but it's a vehicle for you to use to get your voice heard, but no one utilizes it. And how many people go vote at their local voting office? Like
Hey,
no one.
listen, Charlie. I agree with Kenna. These are elected officials, and we're the constituents. If we don't apply pressure, they just continue nonchalantly.
Exactly. That's what I'm
So if
saying.
we don't, we have to ask. You could write letters to your congressman. They got to feel a little bit of pressure because guess what? Like re-election is up. Like what was that guy's name in AOC's district? He was so comfortable for so many years. He didn't think he could lose. He didn't have to act.
That's the
But
thing.
guess what?
In any area, there's always a vehicle to use to get your voice heard. You just got to utilize it.
Oh yeah,
It's
and
something.
guys,
It's better than doing nothing.
And I'm doing this
Yeah,
very
exactly.
professionally. Like, Lady and I are drafting up professional letters. Like, we're gonna, send them. We're not gonna just tweet at them. Like, that's goofy. I mean, unless they really like Twitter. I mean, if we have like a Trump type governor or senator that's always on Twitter, well, maybe. But
I'll send a direct letter.
Oh, that would be wonderful. But I do know so this is the really cool thing is that for my husband when he graduated basic, I ordered a flag from Rubio that they hang flags above the Capitol buildings and things like that every day, and you can actually have one sent to you for a special, like you can have one flown for a special occasion, and then they send it to you. And he actually had a very nice handwritten letter addressed to my husband. So I thought that was really cool. So I mean, they are people, and I'm seeing Chef in my YouTube. They're people.
The nation is very agitated. Now is the time. People are more agitated than ever with the disparities, with the inequalities. I think now is the time. Is better than ever.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
The biggest inequality is the wealth gap.
Listen, I hate my governor. I got no problem sending him letters too.
You guys hate all your governors.
I don't hate
I
mine.
call my congressman every week. I call him, or every other week, and let
But
him
listen,
know what I'm thinking.
This is the problem with political strongholds. They got a stronghold. They vote along party lines, and think they're guaranteed. And I'm tired of it. That's why they've been saying for 100 years the two-party system is broken.
It's been
more people need to vote, especially on the ground level.
And that's why I was registered an independent from my first registration, and I hold that all the way through. Not a fan of the party system.
I think I'm going to switch to independent because I'm disgusted with both parties.
Hell yeah, that's the way to go.
Yeah, never affiliated. Never liked, because I can go either way, and I never liked the party system.
Good. So Ken Griffin, he'll go to the highest donor and whoever he can pay.
I brought a Kel up, so can we let him speak, please?
Yeah, can I jump in for a second? So Howie said something that I think is very important, where he mentioned like reaching out to one of the younger, the younger congressional folks. So like I'm, I guess you could say, involved in like the political scene here in New York, and I think reaching out to some. If I were you, Kenna, and when I'm targeting targeting Congress folks or whether it be senators for to speak to try to bring them on, to sort of like interview them, I would go after folks that are in like the financial services committees because of the simple way in which like the structures are set up. The ones that are on the committees are those specific committees are going to be the ones that make the most sense because I can almost guarantee you. So for example, I live in Congressional District 9. I can almost guarantee you if you reach out to my congressperson about it, even if let's say she responds and she comes and she listens or whatever, she's personally not going to be well versed on financial matters. So I think it's imperative that you target it to like the ones that actually sit on the committee that matter, because keep in mind they meet in committee and then they bring it back to the floor for general voting, right? So I think that's the approach you should take. So like Mango even mentioned AOC, who beat
she's on my list.
Yeah, the guy you were talking about, Mango.
By the way, she's a big fan of ours.
Yeah, the man you were talking about was Joe Crowley, Mango.
Yes.
He was like the godfather of New York, of Queens. I'm from Brooklyn, and like the truth is, a lot of these older, a lot of the old school guys, so to speak, even within, and I'm not to get political, but I'm a Democrat, right? And even a lot of the old school guys, they're in the pockets of like some of these financial folks. Just when you're also looking, Ken, what I will suggest to as I'm speaking to you, this came to mind. When you're looking at which electeds you're reaching out to, take a look at who's their biggest contributors. Just Google that, and then that can sort of like help you narrow down which way to go. But I'd go after AOC, probably Richie Torres out in New York. Those are the two that comes to mind.
Yeah,
that's the approach I would take. And like, if reach out to your fellow apes and see who's like within the political or civic circles. And the reason why I say that is that, trust me, I guarantee you on this, right? I'm the VP of a political club here in New York. You reach out to it's much easier for someone that's within the political circle to reach out and possibly get you to sit down with like a chief of staff than you send in one of a million letters to an office, because they get tons of mail, tons of emails,
Right.
tons of tweets, and all that kind of stuff. So
I
I know they
appreciate
feel
that.
the way.
That is some really great information. That is, thank you. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I
Very
would
good.
I'm
argue
gonna
that
personally.
one.
I can't make any promises, and there's no guarantees onto anything because, like, again, people will choose to get. So will be selective in terms of what they choose on. But you said something tonight that made me say I'm gonna try what I can try on my end, and if I do ever get any responses or a slight inkling from someone that they may be interested, I'll just inbox you, and then we can try to take the conversation from there.
Oh, for sure.
Another person for New York that I would think you would want to reach out to, she does a lot of CNN interviews, and she was vocal about. You can go through her tweets and you'll see. She's a is she an assemblywoman or state senator? Her name is Yulene New, an Asian lady. I think she's in the assembly. Reach out, look up that name. But she's not at the federal level. She's at the state level. I would reach out to her as well because I
Okay,
think
cool.
she was directly involved in GameStop.
Well, and I will put this out here too, and I'm gonna tweet all this out, but I wanted to make it a verbal, announcement because it's something pretty big. It's a big project. And so, and I will put this out there. If somebody does have a link, if you guys are the ones that are able to help set it up, you are coming on the podcast. I hope you know that. Like, that is kind of the thing I want to happen is so like, Akel, if you are the one that helps set up something with someone, I want you on the podcast. Howie, if you do it, or Mama, if you're down there and you're doing it, like anybody that's here and you guys say, hey, I got this link. I've contacted them. They said yes. I'm bringing you on. I hope you know that.
Yeah, can you let me ask you a question? Do you have like just a general draft of questions that you would like to ask? So at least if you can make it available that if let's say I was able to get someone that be like a chief of staff that may be willing to at least listen, that you can say, well, here, these are the things they want to ask, because like a lot of these guys like pre-scripted shit. So
Yeah.
Oh
that's
yes,
what I'm asking.
that's how all of our interviews are. We always submit questions, so I should have the final draft of questions and the intent, because I mean I know that's a big thing with people is what is your intent? Are you going to slander me or whatever? That's not it at all. I will have that probably finalized this weekend. It's ready to go out on
Okay,
Monday.
and then you would also want to like give them your I guess is BullHouse like forgive me, I mean I've seen you guys around and I watch your YouTube videos, but is it like a legitimate like LLC or corporation,
Not
something that's set up?
Not yet. I'm waiting for some extra funds to where I can make it. I'm trying to make it a nonprofit or an LLC. I haven't quite. I'm trying to read through all of the legal mumbo and jumbo because what I'm trying to do with it. But we are working on it to become basically a media company. So I'm trying
Oh,
to. I want to do a magazine, a digital magazine. I'm trying. We have the YouTube. I'm going to try to get on Apple and Spotify. I'm trying to grow it. We've
the only
only been alive. BullHouse has only been alive since May. So
Registered in
yeah,
Delaware.
the only reason why I asked that is because clearly they would want to do a vetting of whoever they're sitting down to speak with. Like, no elected wants to like sit there and talk with someone that's like been convicted of fraud or
oh
like a
gosh,
child
no.
molester or some wild thing. So
They can run my background. My husband's a military vet. They will find a very clean record here.
got it. Okay. I mean, again, like I said,
Huh.
it gave me an idea tonight, and like from listening to you guys, that's why I reached out and I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna try something. No
Now's the
guarantees if
time
it
to come
works.
clean, Kenna.
Oh gosh, guys.
Well,
Well,
Good people
We
accept.
won't judge you.
Good people.
you know,
I
I think Akella really hit a very, very important point there. If you're looking at targeting towards Rubio and Rand Paul, look at their voting records, look at who supports them, and really, honestly, take a look at that because their votes don't stand with apes. And you look at the Financial Services Committee, my own representative. Out here is Zeldin on Long Island. He votes against my interests, and like just about every time. So, those people, while they might accept an interview from you, they're just going to want to run the game, and they're going to tell lies, and they're just going to tell stories. If you talk to the people that vote the vote, talk to the people that vote the vote.
And Ken, I'll also say this too, right? It's gonna be hard to not have this be a little bit like nonpartisan, right? Because the reason why I say that is like the folks that are gonna, without saying which way, the folks that are probably gonna support the position that most of us, quote unquote, apes or like AMC, GME supporters are on, are typically on one side of the party. I mean,
Well,
I
one
don't
side of
think
the
that's
one
where,
side of
necessarily
this
though
of this
that
so
team.
you're
that's actually a
going
big
to
thing
get
that,
into that part. I mean, truthfully, if you go back to the hearings for this whole thing, you did have members of both parties coming on, and while they may have had, I mean, different political loyalties, um, there was civil discussion from both sides
Both
about
sides there was.
yeah, and
it's
that's
not just, and I think that's why, I mean, I don't think this is going to be really a political thing. Sure, there's going to be
no.
politics involved.
Yeah.
They all have their agendas, but I
It's
think you
more
can
it's
look
more
at both
it's
sides.
more again it's more about the wealthy power, the connected, the I can be connected, and it's like, obviously I'm a I after 30 years of this nonsense, I've gotten pretty fucking progressive. Um
I
and
forget that one dude,
I
but he
will.
like ripped Kenny Griffin a new one. I forgot his name in the hearing. Like Kenny Griffin was like dodging his questions, and he like ripped him
Oh
to the
yeah.
angle. That was
But
funny
He's
you
to
know
like,
me.
what,
oh,
bro?
yeah, he
As
said he's
He's
he said it was kind of
he
a
was like, "You're
funny.
wasting
He
my
goes, I don't
time."
need you to. It's like what he said to Vlad. He's like, I don't need you to sit there and say I appreciate that on every
Yeah,
fucking
he was literally like
introduction.
pissed, man. He was like, "Yeah, I'm taking my
Thank
time
you for
back."
the question. I really appreciate that. It's like, really? We want to hear some substance. Shut the fuck
Yeah,
up,
yeah.
Vlad, and just answer the goddamn question.
Well, you do realize he's just filibustering. I mean, he's
but
No
that's
shit.
but I'm
all
gonna
he
show,
can do.
but I'm gonna show you something, right? I'm a little bit reticent to like even call out the person specifically, right? But like, as much as I agree, let me say it this way: I agree with him on a lot of issues, but not all. So like the some of the folks that the ones who are typically influential, and like as it pertains to like financial services and that kind of thing, are going to be the ones that have chances are have been probably have been bought out already, or like those are the ones technically with the real power. Because like a guy like Richie Torres or like even AOC, yeah, has a loud voice, but like how much power do they really wield? And like if you look at and I'm being critical of my critical of my own side. If you look at our top number 3 guy out in New York, right, who's probably next in line to be the speaker of the house, he is receiving money from the financial services. So I'd be very very very
Right.
shocked
Matter
to
matter
see
of
him
fact,
go
I'm
against.
very anxious. I'm very anxious to see, in my own party. I'm very anxious to see what happens. I've known about the speaking fees from like Janet Yellen, and yes, no, but and yes, everybody does it. But I'm really anxious to see what comes about with this whole thing. I'm really anxious to see if anything comes down about Nancy Pelosi's husband's trading record.
Oh gosh.
Okay,
Yeah, it never does,
but
Howie. It never does. It
Well,
never
right.
so
does.
Yeah, but no. But don't forget, Biden hired someone who, Gary Gensler hired someone, who worked for the SEC that had a conflict of interest, or not, maybe not necessarily a conflict of interest, but actually did step down before our new enforcement director took position.
From New
Um,
Jersey.
Yeah, but
yeah, oh yeah, he's
Is
the
our new
king.
enforcement director the guy out of Jersey that's connected to that pension fund that just purchased 229,000 shares of AMC? And in addition, right, the if you look at Biden's administration, three of the top executives from BlackRock, well, former BlackRock alums,
Right.
are now in Biden's administration, which is
Of
why
course.
I
Of
honestly
Of
have
course.
course.
confidence in our
And
trade.
and
But
it's
like,
like
yeah,
and don't forget, We've had how many countless people coming from Goldman, and if anything, whether or not they were Democrat or like John Esquine, I can't remember, Erskine, I can't, and then Hank Paulson and all those. Listen, the biggest thing that we really need, honestly, the biggest thing we need besides getting our MOAS is we really need to overturn Citizens United. That's the first step.
Oh yeah.
No offense or buts. This and let me rephrase that. That's number two. Number one is the voting rights. No offense or buts. Okay, and you'll see fair representation and the people getting the vote that they want. And the work from the people that they want to place in their positions, not 96% lock in their gerrymandered districts. We want people to work for us.
Howie, I don't want to piss off the other side too much, bro. But
no.
No, so okay,
it's the
so
same, but they have the same problems on their side. They know that.
Howie, I'm gonna intervene real quick. So this is the other thing, real quick, with all of this. So and for those that don't know about BullHouse and how we operate, like, we don't like echo chambers. We like controversy. We like getting both sides of every coin because that's how you find truth, right? There's truth somewhere in the middle of all of that BS that we hear. And so if we can, if we have Republicans, so, and for full disclosure, I'm libertarian. I'm right in the middle. I like both sides. I like some things that Democrats do. I like some things that, the Republicans do. I like some things that the Green Party does. Like, it doesn't matter. So therefore I like the idea of, bringing both sides in and Akel, if somebody gets mad at you for whatever, that's on them, because, at this point we're in this historical point in our lives that we need to start having these hard conversations. We need to start hearing both sides of every situation because we're all kind of lost at this point. And I think if we can open these discussions, that's why with our spaces and everything, and I didn't go over the rules. I'm sorry, guys. But basically, the biggest one I have to say is, if you wouldn't say it to somebody in the streets because they're going to punch you, you just don't say it in here. Other than that, open it up. Stop hiding. We can't do that anymore because this is what's happened with the financial world. Everything was hidden. You're not supposed to get in the stock market because it could screw you. It's dangerous. It's big, bad, scary thing. And we're finding now they said that because, well, they've been playing it to their own benefit. And now that we've been calling it out, we're seeing the manipulation, we're seeing the BS in it. It's getting people talking. And so if we can get these conversations talking about the economy and how every state is being ran, because every state is ran differently. I live in Florida, ladies out in California, we have people in, Massachusetts and Michigan and Wisconsin. Like, we're all over the place, and all of our states are ran differently, but yet we're one united state or one united country, right? But then we also have,
sure we are.
We have, we have Canadians in this, we have Europeans. So, if I can get, people from Canada and higher ups, entities, and from Europe, and seeing how they're doing and whatever countries, Africa, South America, whatever continents we can reach, I'm all game for, guys. Like, I am wanting BullHouse to be that place where people can come have a adult conversation, because that's what we need to start having, because we're not kids anymore, contrary to what most people think millennials are. But we need to start doing that because, Gen X, millennials, we're coming up.
I'm all for respectful debate.
Yeah, we're coming up on a time when our generations are going to be running the countries and the world soon, and we're left in the dust. We have no idea how any of this works, right?
Oh, I got news for you. You guys have a lot more than you know. You have an understanding for each other, a desire to make change. There's so many different things that you guys bring, which is absolutely wonderful. And, in addition, some of the bad stuff that everything has been swept under the rug. People saw it, people felt it, people lost jobs, homes, careers, sanity, lives. They turned to drugs. They've been pleading for help, and it hasn't been there. One of the even though I mean it's been a horrible couple of years, and people have lost loved ones, and lives have been destroyed, and they still have long COVID and all that stuff. But this pandemic, I mean, honestly, it's probably one of the greatest things that has happened to the future of the planet, um, in the financial markets, and therefore in the energy markets. Like, for instance, the EV thing is just, I mean, just look in 1.5 years what has happened just in the EV and why. You know, this is really been eye-opening for so many people, and I really would like this movement to move up into the eyes of the older generations who are called okay boomers, on Reddit. But I mean, it's seriously, um, uh,
Are
just
you a
an
boomer, Howie?
what?
Are you a boomer?
No, I'm 66. I'm
You're a boomer.
66.
You're a boomer.
No. I'm not. I'm born in 50. I'm born in 66. I'm 55.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
I'm not. No. Boomers.
So
Yeah.
he's
Boomers
a
were.
he's
Yeah.
a pre he's
He,
a pre-boomer.
he's a Gen
No,
Xer.
no.
He's a Gen Xer.
Yeah, I'm a Gen Xer, but boomers were 46 to 64.
you
Then
sound like a
there's.
millennial at heart, Howie.
Oh, I told you, I've been waiting for this shit to happen for a very goddamn long time. So
Well, but you mentioned the EV, but great boom in the last year or so, but that's only in the market, not in really, the exact change that we need to see.
no,
And
but
the climate change is
oh,
already like out of the gate. It's going
it's
to be
way
hard to
out.
bring
It's
that
been
back.
out of the gate for 25 years. We haven't
Yes, it
done shit
has,
about it.
and it's been denied. It's been denied by so many, for such a very selfish reasons.
Hey, Kev, all these topics, they're all controversial. And people need to be respectable when they debate it. Because, just because you're for EV doesn't mean you have to hate oil, or people don't have to get so extreme on their views all the time. People are getting so radical, it's creating a great divide. Just because you're all for EV doesn't mean you have to hate oil.
No, I'm
Or
not
you're for climate. Yeah.
No, I'm not necessarily all for EV, but I've known about
I'm not
climate
saying
change for
you.
the
I'm
last
generally
35
speaking.
years. I
Yeah.
mean, I can read the science. I believe in vaccines. I believe in masks. I don't think that's radical. I believe the science, and I want to invest in the future. And
Listen, it's got to be a
they're
slow
saying, "Oh,
transition.
take the monoclonal, take this $5,000 treatment." You know what? The $40 vaccine and a dollar mask and the $40 vaccine is going to save you that $5,000 treatment on the back end. An ounce of prevention is worth more than a pound of cure. It's just the
Absolutely.
science. That's
I
it.
don't know. I'm
It's
not
like what
completely convinced.
it's like what they say about healthcare. If you're poor and you have no health care because you have no money, and dental, for instance, is not covered on any health plan. You'd have to get that specially on its own. The more you put off problems in your teeth, it just like interest, it
You,
compounds.
you can get heart disease from problem in your teeth,
Yeah,
and
I
you can
know.
die from the heart disease. So you know what? Let's get them a filling.
There's a lot of different ways to look at it, Kevin. You could debate this for hours.
But
It's
then
not
on the
that.
other
It's
hand,
not that simple.
also, just so Mango, one of
Yes.
the things when it comes to climate at this point, we really can't go slow. It's gotten to. I mean, look at California, it's burning down. Look at Greece, it's burning down.
This is my
Look at
problem, though, Howie. Climate change, fine. I'm not saying that I disagree or I don't believe. It's something that needs to be transitioned. Because guess what? Everybody's enjoying cheap energy. Everybody enjoys all these things that we hate.
Hey, well, hold
Oh,
on.
you're in
About
Jersey. I
California, I
forgot.
So
think
I would like
that's
to chime
largely
in.
due to them not
I have
taking
a
care of their
background
wildlife
in,
or their
I have a
overgrowth.
large amount of background in renewable energy. I've actually worked at NREL, which stands for the National Renewable Energy Laboratories. I've also done pharmaceutical research as well. I have pushed out multiple hundred pages of research actually indicating how I was able to make gas for about a couple bucks per gallon solely by algae.
Well, California's on fire because they didn't deforest the country or the state like they were
Yep.
told to do. That's the
Right.
reason why it's on
My
fire.
point is that I'm not even, my point is that these things are capable, and I personally have been able to prove to how that use even biomass, that was my specialty, could be produced for only a few bucks,
What
like
is
a
your
gallon.
Pawn?
What?
What is your name?
Pone, WTF barbecue? That I can't, yeah.
Pawn. Well, Pawn, I'm
Pone,
just
yeah, like
saying
Paleron.
be a slow transition. It's not the snap of a finger that everybody wants all the time. That's all I'm saying.
But that's
I,
what got us in this problem. We never made the
Yeah,
transition. They always promised the transition and it never
Yes,
came.
That's
I mean,
because you're fighting big
it's
money at
because
the same time.
the slow transition would be a result of society. It's the influence of society. I mean, we can't immediately just go from one for the other. We have to build the infrastructure and other all the stuff like that. But the
Exactly.
point is, the science is there and has been quite for some time. When I did my own research into biofuels, that was back in like 2013. When I did, so I mean, even during then, that's way before. I mean, all the science has been there for a while. But it's more so that. Um, it just hasn't moved because of the government and societal norms.
Well,
it's
it's been
because
there.
of
Think about
lobbying
it this
interests
way.
and things like that.
Yeah,
Hang on,
think
I
about it
just want
this
to
way.
chime in with this one thing, right? Like, the U.S. sits in a very privileged position, and energy in this country is heavily subsidized, but it's only specific types of energy, namely fossil fuels. Take a look at Afghanistan, okay? The poorest freaking country in the entire planet, okay? Their farmers discovered that using solar panels was cheaper than using fossil fuels. They're in the freaking Middle East, dude. They can get, oil locally, and they're still using solar panels. Like, you have to wonder, like, why is that? And it's because if you take out all the subsidies, okay, on balance, solar energy is just cheaper. Is it as efficient? No, it's not efficient. You need a lot of land, you need a lot of panels, but
And
once you get that set up, it is cheaper. And
another
unfortunately, what Afghanistan grows is poppy. It's opium. So
I mean, this is also the difference between like EV or even solar panels versus making gasoline. So with EV, you don't have any process necessarily for conversion of the original source. I mean, for example, the dinosaur oil, and having to convert and do all the chemical reactions necessary to produce into gas. And so another thing that's also preventing like biofuels from taking into point, because a lot of the same type of chemical processes that are used to make biofuels, the cheaper one, it's very similar to actually to also make plastics. And plastics are more interested or more like more desirable to make versus the biofuels because that's what's going to sell.
and that's really unfortunate because plastics just pollute our planet like none
Hmm.
other. Like, um,
Yeah.
But
I living.
some plastic is so
And so,
practical.
Well, I
excuse
say
me?
that as saying like living. I've lived in Hawaii and I live in Florida, so I'm surrounded by water constantly, and that's one of the biggest things that we get just scolded about is just plastic this and plastic that. And I know California has their plastic bans, and I don't know. Like, I guess for me, it's like, the biggest thing I saw was like being out in Hawaii was one of the turtles had a straw literally stuck up its nose, like,
Oh my God.
yeah, like it was so
Yeah,
sad. Like it's
I saw that. That was
terrible.
it's
crazy.
yeah, I was out there when that happened, and I was like, that is, we're killing our planet. Like if we keep using these kinds of products, and um, I don't know. I love that a lot of industries have gone to like paper straws, or they actually have biodegradable plastic now that degrades in like I think 3 to 6 months or something like that now. But
yeah, the time frame is optimistic, but it is biodegradable.
yeah,
Yeah,
very
and I
optimistic.
don't to chime in too, right? Like I don't know if any of you folks here are also like poli sci too, but like during my years in school between I'd say between 2009 to 2013, we did research in one of my political geo classes, and like they tell you straight up, water is going to be the next. The water as a natural resource is dwindling, and our next set of wars are going to be over water. So you can think of water as being the new oil. So just keep that in
Oh
I
yeah,
think
100%.
that is such a terrifying prospect, because you would think that water should be free for everybody. You know what I mean? It's like, it's such a terrifying prospect to have water be commoditized. The
That
same
is
way
Well,
that
I mean,
literally
if
that's
Dr. Burry actually, it's one of his biggest investments is water, and
I
that's
know, but
There's a
look,
water
he's
ETF
doing that
fund.
Water and
because he's a
farming.
cynic.
I
He's
mean,
doing
Short-term
that because
fleet.
he sees Wall Street taking over the water supply. Think about how insane that is, right?
Short
Well,
Nestle.
outside of making water a commodity, when we did it, at least the angle of research that my class we did it on wasn't necessarily from the money making aspect. It was more from like the governments, like the victors, and that we were told will be. Well, I shouldn't say told, but we learned will be the countries with strong militaries, right? And in some
Yeah.
countries, like in the Mid East, where I think the Nile was the particular river we were looking at, where countries that sit at the top of the river are the ones that are with strong militaries are the ones that are going to be in the best position because they have the ability to
Yep.
dam the rivers and disturb the water flow. So countries at the bottom can be literally like starved out of water.
that's
Yep.
been, I mean, we already have that going on right now. I mean, for example, a lot of people have like California also have a lot of fights going on with water. I mean, that's been a pretty ongoing thing. I mean, even if you want to take a capitalistic view on it, look at Flint, Michigan, which
Wow.
they have the potential to actually change everything, get the fresh water. But I believe Nestle is the company that's stealing from them. I mean, it's not even a government or like international type problem. It's also
They let
capitalistic
it
as
happen.
well.
well, so
It's capitalistic.
and this is where I say,
Well,
guys, like when people are asking like my end game with all of this stuff coming up, like I know Howie and a few others say like they don't see a crash. I'm sticking with it. I prepare for the worst and hope for the best type thing. But land with freshwater rights, like, and that's something that you do have to check with your county or your state or whatever to make sure you have mineral rights whenever you buy land. And this is like I was running by my grandmother, land with fresh water, so a creek, a lake, a pond, an underground aquifer that you can tap into. It's going to be a huge thing that you probably should invest in at least. And this is a friend. This isn't financial advice, but just something that I'm looking
This
at.
is friend advice.
Friend advice. It's not financial. I'm not done telling you go do this, but as a friend from things that I see, and because your three basic needs as a human is food, water, and shelter, right? Well, if you have land, you can grow your own food, raise it, whatever, your water
And
source and
air.
everything. Well, I mean, they have suits for that. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, so that's why I say, water is going to be a hot commodity here very soon. And that's where I'm happy that they are actually able to
I,
desalt.
I agree with that idea.
Yeah, they're able to actually remove, the solidity from ocean water now. That they're working on it still. It's not perfect, but they're actually able to do it. So that's something to also look into. So
I think it's very optimistic that you think that water is going to be a problem because I mean, right now, I think that by the time that actually doesn't become a problem, we'll be dead from all the greenhouse gases and
oh
the current
gosh.
crisis standard anyway. So
Well,
I agree.
Greenland
I
lost.
agree. I agree that it's going to be a problem, but I don't think it's going to be a problem, like, because we'll probably be dead by then.
I hope.
Don't be surprised because Greenland lost record amounts of ice this year, like record amounts of ice,
Yeah,
and
and
all
and
that water is
we
blown
just
away.
had the hottest month on record on the planet
Yeah, and
in July.
and all the ice was melted down specifically because of the climate change or climate crisis. So it goes, even if we were to survive the climate crisis and then water becomes the next problem, I think it's very optimistic to believe that's the next apocalypse.
Well,
Well,
Oh
and we've
gosh.
already and well, it already came out that because of the melting of the ice, the Atlantic current is actually changed. And I mean, you talk about a scenario that is almost identical to the movie Day After Tomorrow. I mean, with all the shit that we're starting to see, I mean, it could happen very quickly.
I agree.
So, and on top of it,
I agree with you, Howie, as I sit in a place where we're about to get sideswiped by 2 hurricanes or tropical storms. So,
And so one thing we also have to consider, although the water itself is, excuse me, although the ice itself may be melting, doesn't mean the fact that it is pure water. That is a very optimistic assumption. For example, there could be a lot of bacteria or even very, very old, I guess single cell bacteria that could be within it. So therefore, the assumption that is being currently made that the water is drinkable. I mean, even if, for example, there's ice being melted down and within this ice is contained pockets of methane, but methane is a greenhouse gas. So therefore it is, as as the ice is melting off, it's releasing the methane and therefore actually accelerating the rate at which this climate crisis is occurring.
Absolutely. Yes. Well, those pockets of methane are in the terms of hundreds of metric tons. So it's a tremendous amount. So then my existential question is, are you going to try to pry my GameStop shares out of my burnt out hands or out of my freeze-dried, dehydrated hands? Yes. I will hold.
Absolutely. They will try
And
their
move up to
damnedest.
Canada. We have lots of fresh water.
So I do have a question, guys. We are about 5-10 minutes before we call this a night. Gary asked a question, and this is a long one, so bear with me. I have middle to low double X shares of GameStop, and I'm pretty much tapped out for now, but I'm thinking that that's still more than enough for life-changing money. I agree. I keep hearing about people trying to add as many shares as they can to increase their position, and I'm wondering how much is enough. I'm not sure if people are trying to add buy pressure to help trigger the MOAS, make extra sure that the retail owns more than the float, or just get more and more potential return for themselves. What are people's goals for trying to have a certain number of shares? If I keep scrimping and scraping together whatever change I can in order to try and buy another share, what might that accomplish?
I would argue, first of all, the definition of what life-changing is, because money to me is life-changing, may be different from money to someone else. And so that's where I have to be clarification that definition is going to differ from person to person. And also one reason as to why I personally buy a bunch of shares because it's exciting. I do a bunch of data analysis and a bunch of I do, and also I incorporate various different type of methods and determine how to remove or exit my position. So therefore, if you have more shares, the exiting a position is going to be a lot more, I guess, safe in a way. For if you only have one share, you only have that one chance to hope you get that. You hope you get that top. But if you have multiple different shares, you'll have multiple different chances of it ensuring that you actually got the most bang for your buck. So that's one thing, is like the exit strategy. And then no one knows how big this number is going to get. So if it only gets to 10,000, just an example, I believe is going to get way higher than that. That's another thing. It's like it's extremely speculative. No one knows the extent to which the money will climb, and so that's another thing. Is just like no one knows how many. So one person who's very believes that this is going to go up to 420 million will only buy one, versus someone who only plans is going to go less than that. And yes, there is ultimately also the like the more you buy, you're adding to the cause. And for me, one reason as to why, I personally have a decent amount of shares, but for me, it's exciting to buy the shares. So that's it's just exciting to add to that.
Isn't it like shooting up? Isn't it like shooting up? Like I bought a share today.
Yeah, and so every single time,
I swear to God, I feel like a junkie. It's like, okay, I'm eating ramen for the next week. I'm like, yes, I fucking did it. I'm sticking it to the man.
Hey, Howie,
So
we're gonna have to send you to the clinic.
Yeah,
if
I'd
I
like
can
to
add
speak
in
on
real quick.
Oh yeah, go for it.
Okay, so, and I know, Howie, I don't want your input on this because I know how you feel, because GameStop's going up, so hush you. Hey Diamond, one sec. So here's my thing to kind of calm everybody. If you haven't heard this before, and if you have heard it a million times, I'm sorry, but I need to figure out how to really get this out more. A way to calm your nerves. life-changing money. This is, and what Pawn was saying, what's life-changing money to her is going to be different from mine, from Ladies, from Howie's, to Akel's, right? Everyone is in a different situation. So a thing that I found, a good little calculator to figure out your floor, what you're looking for, okay? Take your bills, your debts, your credit cards, your loans, your whatever's you owe, whatever, your grandpappy if you owe him anything, whatever, anything that you owe, write that all down. Your house and your car. If you need a house, figure out how much you want to pay for a house. If you have a house, figure out how much you owe on it. Write that down. Your car, if you need a new car or another car, whatever, write that number down. If you need to pay it off, write that down. And then take your 10 to 20 year, that's what I'm going to say, 10 to 20 year salary on average throughout the states at this moment, not accounting for inflation or deflation or whatever craziness we're seeing. In the states, is about $75,000 for a family of 4. Other states like California, New York, Colorado, whatever, $150,000 roughly a year is comfortable for a family of 4. So take that times 10 or 20. Remember, you can always invest. You can start a business, whatever you need, right? So that's your salary. Add those all up. Add 40% to whatever that total is. That is your grand total. Now, take that number, your grand total, divide it by the number of shares that you have, okay? This is now your own personal floor. Okay, this is probably going to be a lot less than what astronomical numbers that the MOAS should be. And Howie, hush you. And so the theory behind this, why I say this, is that whenever you see your own personal floor is lava, it's on the way down, in my opinion, not financial advice, but the floor is on the way down, the floor is lava, you don't touch it. Then whenever it hits your floor on the way up, you're sitting fine. Now it's going, and anything else is icing on the cake, and you're good, right? So it hits twice your floor. Okay, there's one generation. Hits another, 3 times your floor. That's another generation. Now you're building generational wealth, and you can sit back and smile. You're not going to be stressed about it. Okay, that is a personal floor. Howie is against my whole selling on the way down because stocks only go up, but that's
no. Whoa. I've only seen stocks, except for only a few. I've only seen stocks go down, okay, for 30 years, except for Apple, Google, Microsoft.
I'm just giving you a hard time.
Yeah. But
you want to see down? Look at my portfolio.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm holding, for a protest, for a big fuck you to the every motherfucker who has destroyed my life and millions of lives and killed people over 30 years.
Howie, you're clearly optimistic. I got 2 questions for this group. One is anybody else worried besides me that they're going to try to pull the rug out from underneath us?
No. And
No,
I will tell you why. Because
hang on.
I just want to say, let me finish that statement. They took the buy button away in January, right? Yeah. I couldn't believe they manipulate right in our face.
Good luck doing that again.
The entire free market of this world depends on that buy button working next time. You have the entire, but listen, you have the entire world now, including countries, Norway, all kinds of entities around the world are invested in GameStop. You cannot.
It's even bigger than that, though.
You will kill all foreign confidence and international confidence in the U.S. market, which is already eroding. It has been going away.
It was international in January also. They had so much attention. It was all over the news. There was billboards in Times Square.
But guess what? It went away. It got suppressed.
No, it didn't. It got suppressed, but we've had 7 months to dig. You think they're not paying attention? They're absolutely paying attention.
And
nobody wants to talk about
They know what we've uncovered.
They know exactly.
Think about it.
Corruption right in our faces.
What everybody's uncovered.
That was so blatant.
So this is a paradigm shift, and essentially, how the
Can I just talk about what I've been wanting to talk about? First of all, Kenna, that was a multi-part question. So one of the parts was, if enough people buy, it'll push the price up. No, that's nonsense. We know that they're manipulating it through the dark pools, through the systematic internalizers. Okay, no amount of people buying is really going to do it. The only exception to that, maybe, which would never happen, is if we all put in like huge buy to close market order sales on a Friday. Okay, if everybody did that miraculously, Howie knows where I'm going with this. Okay,
totally.
There would be so much volume, it would force the prices up, and every single fucking call in the options chain would be in the money. We would reproduce January. Okay, I'm not suggesting we do that, and regardless, no one's going to do that because you don't know what price you're going to get filled at with a market order. Okay, so that's out of the question. What was the other part? Owning the float. If we believe all of the DD that we've been doing for 7 months now, we already own the float multiple times over. Okay, so
multiple.
Next question.
Confirmed.
So then the question is like, what is the exit strategy? And I quote DFE, what is an exit strategy? So my hot take, okay, my hot take, I disagree with all of your exit strategies.
Yep.
I don't think there's a legitimate reason to sell ever. Okay, and this is why. Okay, exactly. And again, this is not investment advice. This is just the way that I see it. Okay.
I have to eat, Con.
I know you got to eat, so maybe sell one share, okay? But sell it when you see a really high price so that you can live for a while off that one share, right? But here's the thing, right? What do rich people do? What does Warren Buffett do? He has never sold a share. He has never sold a share of Berkshire Hathaway, right? And Berkshire Hathaway doesn't pay him a dividend, right? What does he do? If he needs money because he's Warren Buffett, he goes to the bank and he says, give me a loan. And the bank will give him a loan, and they'll probably make the interest rate, let's say 0, okay? It's so low that it's not even something that he has to worry about. So now he has money that he can spend, right? We live in a debt-based society. This is how it works. If you have a house, you can take out a second mortgage against the house. You can take a HELOC out against the house, right? You're using your assets to obtain money, right? What is the asset that we all have here? We own GameStop. Right? So there exists a possible scenario where because you own GameStop, potentially you can use that as collateral to obtain a low interest rate loan, right? Your investment portfolio. That is a potential scenario. And okay, so let's say you get a 5% loan. 5% is not ideal, but you know what's better than? Selling your shares and paying capital gains tax. That's how the rich screw everybody else. If you're thinking about selling, okay, you're still thinking like a poor person instead of the person that you actually are. The person that you actually are is someone that holds shares that they have to get back from you no matter what at some point.
Priceless. They're priceless.
It's priceless. It is legitimately priceless. This is how stupid this situation is, okay? Because they put
Conway,
themselves...
I agree, but Warren Buffett gets a salary. That's all.
Okay,
I agree with what you're saying, though. That's all.
Yeah.
Well, and
Totally
Conway,
agree.
you have people that could be wanting to sell one or two or a few to just, reinvest into like other stocks, because if the market goes down, I mean, some of these huge corporations that people want to get into, it's going to be a fire sale.
Imagine having an exit strategy on
a fraction, a half.
I'm just saying, I don't think people realize that this is the thing that you can do, right? And we are in the position that this could happen. Okay,
and
all
by the
the
way,
all the
you
models,
also never know.
you also
never know in the future if they're going to split the stock. So that one share, you'll be able to sell, say it's a 5-for-1 split. You'll be able to sell one of those 1/5 of that share.
Conway and Howie, you're holding all the way for years and years and years.
Oh, I'm selling one share at like $40 million.
That's what I'm doing.
Whenever I need it, and the rest I'm holding. This is a major protest. This is a major investment. This is a major turnaround. There are things that you don't know that are coming. We talked earlier on a call a couple of hours earlier, and I'll just say this real quick just to put it out there. But I personally believe that that Ryan is building like an NBA, a Major League Baseball, and NHL for gamers, and it's going to be just a whole new revenue stream on top of anything that you've ever imagined that is already out there.
Howie, you're exciting me. Stop it.
Just think about it like this.
I'm entirely on that, and I'm not a gamer.
Yeah.
The floor we're at now, say like 160, 180 range. This is just like the beginning Not even the beginning, but say last year in the pandemic when it was $1.
This is like
$2.
owning the stock at $2.
It's like if you owned it then
last
and you
year.
have it now, then you know that same connection. In a year or two, this thing's never going to be at $160 again. Why would I sell my shares?
Yeah, and also after a certain point, money becomes very meaningless. And if you've had success in the past year and a half in the stock market, it's further meaningless, because
and by the way,
you've learned all the tricks.
Here's something that no one's even talked about. Remember, they not only took away the buy button, but they also switched our purchases to only cash, not on margin.
Yeah.
Any other stock you could buy on margin. So like Conway was saying, you could go to the bank and get a loan. Okay. What's to stop you right now from getting a loan at a bank and buying GameStop shares if you have a job, unlike me, for instance? Really think about what the possibilities are that and by the way, if you remember last year when Chamath and Elon posted GameStop, the event that's going to cause the MOAS is not going to be us. The event that's going to be causing the MOAS is possibly SEC related, possibly extraordinarily shocking positive news out of GameStop. It could very well be a regulation, change at the NSCC or the DTCC, and it very well most likely will be margin calls, especially with it jumping from them having to have 800% to 2,500.
Yeah, I think it's going to be
I would
totally
argue that,
left field, something that you're not even considering. But Conway, you're talking about something really interesting about the way that the really ultra wealthy, Peter Thiels and Zuckerbergs and Bezos, that they I'm trying to wrap my head around exactly how it is if they're not selling their shares. So they just take a loan against it. Then where are they getting the capital to pay off that? I was just down there. I saw a yacht in the harbor there the other day, local little harbor, and I was like, wow, that's fantastic. And I looked it up, and I saw you could rent that yacht for $199,000, $199,900 for a week.
Yeah,
and that's in my local harbor here, and I'm like, holy shit, man!
So it's definitely
$200,000 a week for that yacht.
Yeah, it's definitely difficult to wrap your head around, right? Especially if you're not as familiar with how the system works, how a debt-based society works, and how frankly how money works, right? We're still thinking of, you got to get a job, you got to get paid, you got to pay bills, you shouldn't be in debt, and all this other stuff. But
yeah, I was a dopey prepaying my mortgage at 4%, and every month, and I was adding extra money every month.
Yeah, and in a way that makes perfect sense, right? But that's just not how the ultra wealthy live, and that's not how they operate. And in fact, the system almost incentivizes you to go into debt. This is a really wild concept to wrap your head around. So I understand if red flags are going off and you're thinking, okay, this is terrible advice. Maybe it is, okay? But what I am saying is,
how do they extract the money?
Actually, I read that some of the most wealthy have the most debt, actually.
Yes.
And by the way, another way that they extract the wealth is by selling GameStop shares counterfeited.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and I will say, I will add on to this, Conway, Howie, and everyone. I know my panel up here is GameStop. I know that, but we're talking broad market. And I do want you guys to remember that, down in the listening, there could be AMC people, there could be Nokia, there could be, people, the other MOAS people, right? Just remember that. So, they will probably be selling their stocks, other companies and everything like that. So just kind of keep that in mind too. GameStop, it could be definitely a big hold. And I'm keeping quite a few of my shares. But I'm also going to be using some of that money to build wealth with real estate or whatever. So that's the big thing is that we try to help with is we're building wealth, we're creating wealth right now, and then teaching how to keep that wealth, because I don't want people to turn into lottery winners where you get all this money and then you're broke within a year, right?
I agree. Well,
I-
we'll
Andy,
put
think
it,
many of
put it
us
this way.
hold multiples.
I'm
yeah.
a landlord and I have rental income, but I just wanted to make a quick question about the MOAS again. Does anybody believe it's going to be a slow squeeze? Everybody thinks it's going to be
I have no
violent.
idea. Yeah, it has the potential to be violent, but they've been putting
It could also be slow, is what I try to bring the other
yeah,
side.
it could be.
Could be
It's gonna
anything.
be variable. It's gonna be variable. I mean, we know the assumption that it's gonna take multiple days for it to occur, but the rate of change will be variable. So therefore to say it's going to go short or it's going to be long is difficult to answer because the rate of change will not be consistent.
Yeah,
And by the way,
Everybody has an idea of
they can
how it's going to
also halt
happen.
the stock for
Yeah.
like 10, 15 days. I
Yeah.
mean,
yeah.
there's every scenario that they can
Exactly.
halt. I mean, if they can't find, you ever seen an order, when a stock hits a certain circuit breaker and then it halts and then it reopens and then there's gaps up, and I mean, it just all hell breaks loose, and sometimes
Absolutely.
it doesn't even open up that day. Okay, I've seen.
And that's another thing that will adjust the change. I mean, there are so I mean we're so even if so the only I mean we have to consider that there are multiple different variables that will affect the rate of change of the share price. I mean, one of them is the trading halt that will occur because it's going to zoom up. Another we're going to have some paper-handed biatches going on as well. I mean, there are so many different variables that will occur that are going to be unpredictable. So therefore, it's difficult to answer that question because there are so many factors determining the share price
Absolutely.
itself.
And
I
by
just
the way,
want to.
don't forget another thing that you also have to remember. There are some big institutions in this thing, and they have quite quite a few shares. They are quite capable of making moves that, just like that Kramer video. When I was a hedge fund guy, if I wanted to take a position in the stock and go long, the first thing I do is go, take $5-10 million, short it, then call my friends up and tell them what we're doing, and we'd go ahead and do that, and then take a position and bring it up. Okay.
So I mean, ultimately to answer that question, the too long didn't read is yes, but no. There will be moments when it will shoot up, and there will be moments when it drags
Quan,
on.
the reason I'm saying this
All
because
right, hey
people
guys,
have their mindset how it's going to happen, and I just want to put alternative outcomes and possibilities out there for people
Yeah.
to get in their head.
It's gonna be
Nobody
variable.
knows.
Exactly.
It's gonna be variable.
hey guys, can
So
we
to
hand
say
the mic over
one,
to Andy?
Oh, I actually want to interrupt,
okay.
but I agree it will be variable, but would it even go down from paper-handed bitches? Like, I feel I'm not like the math says that they need every counterfeit share back, right? They need to get that down to zero because you can't just be a company making more shares of another company. So could they even
They're
go down once it
Yeah.
squeezes?
So their influence, is going to be not that significant. I mean, one single person that's going to
Right.
be a paper hand biatch will not that matter. And so, assuming that there's a gazillion shares, someone who has even like a couple thousand will not necessarily affect it. So I mean, the paper-handed biatch is and their influence on the overall share price will be determined entirely about how many shares there actually are and how many shares that one person has. To me, because there are so many gosh darn shares, any retail person will not have any noticeable effect in
Right.
the
The
rate of
buying
change.
pressure should be overwhelming.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
but
a couple of things I want to
don't
touch
forget
on based
the institutions. There could be an institution that sees it on a wave that's a little extended and dump 200,000 shares in a half a second, causing a panic sell and getting people to sell from $8,000 down to $1,000, thinking that's the squeeze. I mean, there's gonna
We
be
can
You
there's gonna be
talking
also
waves up.
DFB because he's got 200,000 shares and he ain't paper handing, as
No, he's not paper
Peon
I
handed.
mean, we can
BBQ
also
says, a
consider.
biatch.
Yeah, but you're
Well,
also
yeah, I
talking
mean, I didn't comment
Fidelity,
about my.
Susquehanna.
I mean, one thing is also even if one of these institutions drop 200,000 shares, it's also how much of that single amount what's the ratio between that and the amount of actual shares there are. I mean, if there's only 73 million, I mean, sure, the 200,000 shares may drop it a little bit, but if there's a couple billion, then it won't make any change at
Exactly.
all. So therefore,
So
it's also more, that's another reason to answer that question very, it's hard to answer that question because we don't even know the initial number that we're
And
given.
of course, that can be momentary because while maybe that 200,000 shares drops, there may be only one institution that has been margin called. There may be other institutions that get margin called after that. So it's a very fluid dynamic. And that's what I said earlier about my experience coming in on a double leveraged VIX. That, one day I was up 8, the next day I was only up 4. I shat my pants. And I got out of it, and if I waited 24 hours, I would have been up over $40,000. So big lesson learned there. Don't get out of your whole position at once.
Howie, I'm sorry, Howie.
I'm not gonna.
You said 8,000. You take that 4-digit low number back.
I'm not gonna lie to you. Like listening to you guys talk about this, because I'm not. What I realize is that I'm not a GME holder. I hold AMC, right? So I know my perspective on it is, I guess, slightly different.
Okay.
But I guess I have questions. Like, if let's just say, when MOAS kicks off again, right? Wouldn't there be expected that there's more selling pressure than there is buying pressure because people are trying to cash out? Because at like 8,000, 9,000, 10,000 a share, how many of you folks intend to buy more when the price spikes?
None. We're holding.
We're not intending to sell either.
No.
And there's a guaranteed buyer.
We're not buying. We're not selling. We're holding.
So the first thing that's going to happen is you're going to have a lot of FOMO, fear of missing out, buying pressure that's going to increase on the way up. Just like you saw, there's people with positions in GameStop the whole way over the maximum price, which was $483, because they put in some crazy bids. I mean, I've seen people with positions as high as over $500, and you're going to see that same thing occur with an actual MOAS.
And by the way, don't forget, those were really big, tall, red candlesticks. Red.
Yeah.
Open high, closing low. So even each of those days, it kept on opening up and closing lower. So that's how it's going to look. Remember all of our candles, were all red coming. If you look at the chart, since December and January, if you really look at the chart, we have a lot more down days than we have up. And there's a reason for that. It's psychological. It wears on you.
Absolutely.
And I mean, it weighs on you, and you're like, I just want to prove this already. I
think this is a good time to say, to use limit buys. Like whenever you're buying, put your actual price that you want. So because it could be, someone that's selling super high.
Chase it.
Yeah, and it's don't do market. Don't buy at market, because you could be one that's like buying $200 higher or whatever. So
if someone's
just
telling you to
heads
slap
up.
the ass, that person's not doing you a favor.
But that's the other thing. You're taking positions now, and the buyers at $8,000, $16,000, $32,000, they're not us. The buyers are the. Don't forget, that number changes from 8-to-1 collateral to 25-to-1 collateral. Those buyers are the people getting margin called, and they are not. They're not going to be pulling the trigger themselves. Someone else has a gun to their head, and they're pulling that trigger. And and just like when you saw Archipagos, or however you pronounce it,
close enough.
But I mean, it's a race. It's like Goldman and Morgan beat out Nomura and Credit Suisse. Okay,
well, that's a really good point, because I mean, think about it. What is the highest price stock that you ever bought? I think the highest I ever bought was Chipotle, probably about 4 years ago, at like $4.74.
GameStop at $3.15.
Nice.
Yeah, luckily I got in. I got in a little bit better on GameStop, but
Well, I'm embarrassed to say
outside of that, what is the highest price you ever paid for a stock? So if you think about that, and with all the media and everything with it and everything, while there may be the FOMO, people only have so much expendable income, and they're only willing to. Uh, Even if they're thinking about it as a gamble, they're only willing to put so much, at least in my own experience. I know there's degenerates among us, and, I'll shade my own head because I've gambled a few dollars myself. But,
But this is the part where you take
So that
retail and
it's
you say
specific.
that, all right, so here's a whole bunch of Redditors, here's a whole bunch of people in the know that are on Twitter. What everybody's forgetting about are the people that don't have a voice in this movement, that don't have anything going on. They're institutional. There's going to be all sorts of different movements when this actually happens. And that's why nobody on this call, nobody in the world is going to predict how violent it's going to be, how fast it's going to be. BlackRock, everybody is involved in this. Everybody.
everybody.
So it's
By the way, even the people that are not involved in this, when I talk to people, like when I walk around and I'll talk to someone, oh, I'm not invested in the stock market. I'm like, well, you might want to consider going out and buying one share. Nah, that doesn't really
So, I mean, in
interest me.
regards to the originals, so there's two-part comparison where there's a couple different populations we have to consider. In regards to the person, I mean, like, what's the most expensive share you ever bought? Okay, those are going to be people that are going to be new retail entering the system, and theoretically are those who will not be able to because they are new.
Yeah.
But we also have to consider the ones that, okay, if this share price just does go on for multiple days long, and this one person happened to sell at a certain price and it went down. So we also have to consider those that can re-enter because they sold previous amount of shares as well. I mean, we have to consider that bunch. So for example, if I don't know, if I bought a share at 50, or if I sold a share at 50,000, oh, then it drops to 32, and I'm just like, heck yeah, and I'll just rebuy it as well. So that also could cause it to increases. And so we have to consider those two different type of populations.
Yeah, I'd like to bring.
So Howie and
By the
Connie.
way, also after years and years of watching the stock market, or even if you don't have years and going back and looking, you could see certain things that have happened that could help give you the confidence to just stay holding in your position. Plus, whatever kind of environment we are moving into, whatever you see, will add some confidence. Plus, your portfolio going up will obviously um, confirm your long bias, if you will, which
Yeah.
will
I got a
also
Hey
two-part
guys.
question for
give
everyone.
you that.
Oh, hold on, guys.
And by the
So we
way,
have.
my worst stock that I never bought was the highest price stock I ever considered buying was $6,000 in 1990.
Hey, the co-host would like to
Yeah.
speak. Please respect that.
No, it's cool. It's cool. So we have General Binkus and GME Maxi up here to either ask questions or add some input. General, if you want to go first, and then GME, the floor will then be yours.
Sure. Yeah, it was a little bit ago. They were like, someone said something about institutions wanting to sell to drop the price of their shares, and my input was just going to say, like, if you knew that the stock was going up, you would be scared to sell, even as an institution.
Well, okay. So about the institutional aspect, some institutions just can't sell. Like if you're an index that tracks the S&P 400, you still need to track GameStop, right? So you can't just sell the shares that you have, you know? So there is some safety net there. The thing that I wanted to talk about before, though, I'm going to slightly veer away from this question, is that I wanted to get some background information based on filings and based on history, right? Because that's something concrete that we can rely on. Otherwise, we're just sitting around here just talking shit and speculating, right? So what do I mean by that? Well, trading halts, which King Diamond Hand mentioned. We know that there's a couple of interesting things with trading halts, right? We know that institutions have ignored and blatantly violated the trading halt rule, and they've traded shares during trading halts. And I'm pretty sure that that's what happened in January, right? So normally what's supposed to happen if you're following the rules is if the stock is too volatile and it goes too far in one direction or another, trading is halted for 15 minutes and nobody is supposed to trade, right? As a retail trader, you don't even have the option to trade during that halt. But the
including dark pools.
Right. But the institutions have violated it before. I think Citadel is on record for having committed like 55,000 trading halt trading violations, and it just got lumped together into one violation and they paid one lump sum. How much money did they save themselves or make themselves from violating that rule? So that's the cost of doing business. So
do limit orders and conditional orders go through during that the pause?
not that I'm aware of. I mean, if you get lucky, maybe you'll get filled, but I think so many people will be putting in orders that you have a very good chance of not getting filled.
And
so
they can also break those trades,
right,
based upon trading halts that were violated. So you're
right.
not getting anything for free, except if you're an institutional trader in a dark pool.
Yeah. So
Conway, you also saying that toots won't sell, right? But don't toots sometimes have depending upon what type of toot it is, a fiduciary responsibility to their shareholders to actually make decisions that are in their shareholders' best interest?
Yeah.
That could force them to sell. I'm just curious. I really don't know the
It
answer.
depends on the
just like selling naked shares, counterfeit shares. They have a fiduciary responsibility to their shareholders.
Yeah. So,
I mean,
but nobody's being responsible here. Okay, not a single person is being responsible.
We are talking about rules that don't exist. I mean,
yeah. So going back to the rule filings, right? We know that there was a recent rule filing that said that after 3 trading halts on the broader market, you're done for the day. And think about how a short squeeze works, right? If you're forced to buy back a share at any price and you don't have the money to cover it, you're going to sell anything that's not nailed down to the floor to be able to get money to buy back that share, right? So in the case of an actual short squeeze, that could happen. So what do we expect if it actually happens? Well, the S&P will sell off, right? All the indices will sell off. And if they sell off too much, first halt, pause. If it happens again, another pause. If it happens a third time, trading is done for the day. Okay? So there's potential here that we won't even see trading for an hour. Okay? In any given day.
I've seen trading halts. Like, I remember when they put them in place.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? I mean, there were scenarios where, you would not. I mean, there's scenarios where they anticipate not trading for, it could be 5-10 days.
Yeah, that's happened.
I mean, I don't know if anyone remembers, and I know it was an unusual situation, but September 11th,
Yep.
the fucking market was closed for 4 days, and I started telling the story about me having puts on Nvidia that year, in mid-August into September, and I had options. I had options that, I mean, if you think about this, I kept on asking my branch manager, I'm like, well, if the market doesn't reopen by option expiration, what happens? I'm already losing premium erosion where I would have made on time value. I mean, this is just anything can happen, which, by the way, leads you to the other statement at this point. Own the stock, stop with the options, because like we've already talked about on other calls, they're already telegraphing cyber attacks. They're already telegraphing this. There's everything. You're going to see the amount of FUD that you're going to think is real.
They were telegraphing extraterrestrial vehicles. They were saying that UFOs were real and they had obtained a craft from, you know what I mean? Like, this is real news stories that actually made all the major headlines, all the major
and all of the when everybody's been talking about the FUD, okay? what you're going to be seeing as an onslaught on TV and just covering up whatever's going on in GameStop, you're going to see them talking about deaths and political problems and oh, I mean, you don't even know, you're going to think it's real, and
I don't know. Come on, Howie. They're going to be talking about the new season of The Bachelor, and you know it.
All right, guys,
Conway,
let
me ask you something, Conway. You mentioned about King Diamond Hands, which he's got like an excellent Twitter handle there. He was talking about BlackRock kind of possibly dumping, and I know that they kind of maybe have two sides to their obligations. I don't know if you have any insight into that.
I don't have any particularly special insight. The only thing that I'm saying is that, like, you've got these guys by the balls. Why the hell would you ever want to give up your advantage? And that's the only message that I have about that. Now, that being said, yes, you should probably consider your own financial situation and do what's best for yourself. But like, this is an unprecedented situation. GameStop is 5 standard deviations net short. If you're at all familiar with statistics, you know how crazy of a situation that is. This is never going to happen again.
Is it really 5 standard deviations?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. So let's talk about deviations. When you're only, at one single deviation from the mean, that's going to have like plus, or should say, if you have the mean, it's going to be plus or minus 1 standard deviation. 65% of the data is going to be within there. 2 standard deviation is going to be 95.7. 3 standard deviation is 99.9%. So 4 standard deviation is going to be 99.999.
That was bonds earlier this year.
So I'm trying to explain to people, just basically give them a number to understand how huge that is.
Yeah. So bonds were shorted 4 standard net. I posted it in the chat. You can come to my profile and look at it. Bonds were shorted to 4 standard deviations earlier this year. They've covered that for the most part. Okay, there's still some covering left to do.
What percentage?
They haven't covered.
Sure, they did.
I mean, if you believe
that's why those 4 banks, are kind of teetering.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you believe the H.4.1, from the Fed, if you believe the reverse repo numbers and the collateral that they're using, all this other stuff, if you believe that, then they covered a good portion of it, right? If you believe Hedgeopia, they covered a good portion of it.
What was the percentage of the 5th deviation point?
Sorry. So basically, so it's called the 68, 95, 99.7 rule. So after the 3 standard deviations will be 99.7%. 4 standard deviations will be like 99.99919. Like, there's a reason why a majority of statistics stops at 3 because it's 99.7% of the data. So to go to 4 standard deviations, that's like a bunch of that point, like 99.9999. Like, it's huge.
It's the equivalent. It's the equivalent of 6 sigma.
It's practically an impossible situation.
6 sigma is plus or minus 3. That's 10 sigma.
Okay.
Or 8 sigma. So it's way more significant than that, like, because the sigma value is a standard deviation. So 6 sigma is plus or minus 3. So do you have 4 or 5? It's basically yeah, you'll never see that.
And that's why I gave that hot take earlier, right? Like, of course, I agree. If you see life-changing money, go for it. Take it. Do whatever you want. Okay. But the reality of the situation, from a numbers perspective, as far as I can tell, right, is that from that perspective, there is no reason to sell because you have them by the balls. So why would you ever want to give up that situation?
Well, actually, it was to circle back on it's like the difference between your exit strategy and Kenna's exit strategy. Like, I understand that the numbers do go to infinity, but it's like, imagine like 500,000 apes with like quadrillions each. The money can't work that way. Eventually,
it doesn't.
The purchasing power. Right. The purchasing power, like, of a trillion later won't be like a trillion today. And so, like, I was kind of like thinking of along the lines of Kenna, where she's getting stuff now before the worthless dollars come in, right?
Yeah, I mean, again, past a certain point, money is just meaningless, right? Like, most people, I think they would be happy with $1 million, at least speaking back in January, right? Most people would probably be happy with $1 million. And the number here doesn't really matter. The point is that after a certain point, the money doesn't matter to you, but the power that you wield over these institutions that have been so, detrimental to society, right? That I think is worth more than the money.
Well, I think Andy, what Andy's on, me and Andy are kind of vibing here. How I see this happening. Okay, so if you look at cyclical events, if you look at historical stuff with the USD has been going down. The value of the USD is going down. So if you have money and you need to be able to have a tangible object, instead of stocks, digital, whatever, you have tangible gold, get tangible silver, land, real estate, things that you can actually off to somebody versus a stock. Because if the USD goes down, the value of that dollar, the purchasing power is zip. It's trash. It's basically what we're seeing. If you have inflation or deflation or whatever, the purchasing power would be null and void. So
or stagflation, don't forget that.
Yeah, that too. And so, if you are able to sell off and buy things that later down the road, if we do have a crash of some sort. If you have land, you can always sell land off. You can barter land, you can barter gold, you can barter real estate, you can barter, goods and services, right? So if you have that kind of investment instead of just a stock, because if the stock exchange goes down, then your money's gone. So I think that's kind of where Andy was kind of going with that. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I think
that's the reason as to why I collect bottle caps.
Right, bottle caps. But I think everyone should just keep in mind the ratio of the dollar to Bitcoin. Even if you don't trade in Bitcoin, you don't even want Bitcoin. At least Bitcoin's it's capped at 21 million, and the dollar even though numbers will be big and we will get big numbers, it doesn't mean anything to us because we don't know the total supply of dollars and how much they're printing, right? It's like an infinite machine at the Fed, and we say big numbers, 1 million, 100 million. Eventually, it won't mean anything if they're just printing a lot of it. It's
I think
helpful.
Zimbabwe pops into my head.
Right. It's helpful to trade with something with a finite supply, just so you understand the purchasing power of the actual of whatever you're selling for, if you may to sell. But no, I do agree with Conway. Where there will be shares that I just don't touch.
Yeah, 100%.
Just to hold them by the balls.
That being said, I do think Bitcoin's going to crash extremely hard.
I've been saying that since February, as it ran up to 60 some.
It's
short term or the long term.
When MOAS occurs and they have to sell off whatever crypto they're holding, everybody else is buying, there's a chance. Okay,
I see that too. Right.
That Bitcoin could crash to near zero.
There is going to be a great buying opportunity for crypto.
It's going to be
during
amazing
for crypto.
But long term,
you know when the bottom will be. Okay, first of all, back in 2017, the bottom was in November, which correlates pretty fine to what we're going through right now. In addition, the bottom will be when Michael Saylor gets who laughed, Conway?
Yeah, I know where you're going with this. Go on.
You want to finish my sentence? Then go ahead.
No, go.
No, you go ahead, please.
I think the more desperate Michael Saylor is, you'll know. It'll be like an inverse indicator, like a barometer almost of the situation.
Yeah, he bought at 58,000 the first. Well, I'm not talking the 11,000 purchase, but he bought at 58,000 a boatload, convertible stock. Took out more debt on the way down. He was in dire position at 400. I guarantee it. And this bounce was interesting, but again, it's all psychological, and it looks really good on the daily chart, and it looks interesting on the weekly, but the monthly chart, it could do a big fill for a lot longer than anyone thinks. And if you think about it this way, it's a great concept, and I believe in it possibly in the long term, but also think about it as the government. And let's not even talk about whether or not the government, uh, wants to lose their sovereignty over the potential what blockchain has to offer.
Like the way I see it, like they don't have a choice in the matter.
Right,
It's
but
it's like
it's not that they don't have a choice, but if they can create monetary policy to
right.
make
They'll like try
make
to fight as long as
to
possible to
make to
keep
make
that.
people want to not be in crypto.
Sure, but so I definitely agree with
They'd
Conway.
rather you
Well,
invest in stocks and purchase and be a consumer and grow the economy than having an asset just sitting there in like gold
And who
or
was that
silver
player
or
in a
crypto.
four? Who was the player in a 400, and what was he in a 400 at?
was it? Are we talking about Michael Sayer, like the micro? It's like he just bought money, Bitcoin with his like company's money, like micro
Oh yeah,
transactions or something.
Michael Saylor, MicroStrategy.
Yeah.
Traded back in 98, 99.
Well, I definitely agree with Conway where I see a Bitcoin crash just to like pay for their short positions. But like I'm scared of like I don't know, like if the longer I wait for infinity, the less Bitcoin I can get because there will be a time where the Fed printers will just turn on because like we're just so stubborn. We're waiting for all this money and like they're just gonna print and just like the ratio itself, like even as like the demand for Bitcoin's the same, the supply is the same, but it's not, it's decreasing. Um, there will be a point where it's just like a mass effect where it's like slow at first, then fast of like
But
how bad the
Andy,
dollar
look what you just
devalues.
said. Look what you just
Howie,
said.
real quick.
Your biggest concern is that Bitcoin is going to go up and you're not going to be able to buy, but yet while you're waiting for infinity. Listen
Oh
to
no
the
no no.
sentence that you
No,
just said.
but it's the ratio because like I won't. How do I say this? Like like Bitcoin will raise with it. It won't be like stable. Like there'll be other people like me who will start to be like worried about like trying to save in the dollar essentially,
Right, but
and this
there's
dollar
always
is getting
another
printed to
asset
infinity.
class. There's always another asset to buy.
Oh yeah, of course, but like anything's better than something that printed towards infinity. And we have a bunch of apes that want infinity, right? And we've all agreed money can't work this way. It's just like the purchasing power will have to
That's why
decrease,
it's
right?
going to break. That's why we're making a change for
But
the future and
but
the
like
better.
you don't want to be the last one holding this money that's gonna break before they switch to the new one or whatever they do, right?
Well, some of us have already talked about this, and the only way out of this situation, I mean, if mathematically, let's not even talk about politically or anything. Mathematically, there is no way out. Okay.
Right. Besides to turn on the printers, I
No,
understand. Like
the
that
only
far?
way out of this scenario at some point, whenever it is a negotiation between Ryan Cohen and the powers that be, whether it's the Fed or the president or Congress. I mean, that's the only way out.
Wait, so like essentially saying they're gonna take our shares and our money, or
No. A negotiation on some type of I don't know, but there is no way out.
right, like mathematically
I
they
This
mean,
is one that
just
I
have to
can
pay,
agree
right?
you
with
got
Just
to
you
pay
on.
their
really
debts.
come to terms in your mind with what has actually taken place here. You have to understand that someone sold 10 cars to 10 people and only had that one VIN number. Okay?
Right.
It 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 cannot be resolved at
But
all.
like imagine the stock market. It's like the casino like just cheats you. Would you ever go back to this casino? It's
But
like
that's the thing.
America doesn't want this casino to end. They want people to keep playing.
Howie,
No. The rich 1% powerful don't want the casino to end. The American people want a fairer and equitable opportunity.
And that means paying my share, right? Like they can't just steal my share,
Right,
right?
but
Howie.
yeah, go ahead.
One thing that you said that has always been a concern of mine, like when I think of like all the things that can possibly go wrong, like for like a squeeze in general across the different stocks. So like people selling off is one thing, but I sincerely and a lot of people seem to discount it, but as it pertains to government, if you look at the mission statement of the SEC, there's this little one broad category that kind of like gives me a little reason for concern: to ensure orderly markets. Everyone take a look at what the mission, you can Google it, of the SEC is, and that's a portion of it. And that's where I think, like, that whole idea of like negotiations and that kind of thing, like that's what worries me. Like, could they possibly delist the damn stock, one of these stocks when they start, going crazy, like in order to take it off the market and
No,
sort of like
they already
stabilize
they
things?
already know what's going to happen.
Yeah, and that's what
They
scares me.
already know that I mean, have you listened or to any of Charlie's due diligence on Charlie's vids on YouTube?
Yeah, I've sort of heard one or two of them on
Oh,
YouTube, but yeah.
you need to, if anyone on this call, this is not financial advice, but yeah, just go to Charlie's vids and just
On YouTube.
watch everything on YouTube. Everything. This guy is ripping apart every document. I mean, one of them out of the NSCC is 369 pages. I mean, he'll put up a 1 minute clip or a 6 minute clip. You, if you haven't watched any of these videos, the more you watch them, the more your confidence in not only MOAS but the changes that are coming that are going to create it.
I know Charlie was on earlier. I didn't get to thank him specifically for his work, which is fantastic. But I don't know why he dropped his other moniker from his Twitter handle. I loved it.
Yeah.
But that's the risk. So that, like, what I just mentioned, Howie, is like the only like real major risk that I sometimes worry about. But what gives me like honestly more hope than despair is the fact that like I said, you have Pelosi's husband, you have freaking the guy from Jersey, then you have BlackRock, alum sitting under administration. So like ultimately, all signs to me points in like they want to be profitable, and
But
I think it's
I
going to
also
happen. It's
think
just a matter of when.
transparency is in our favor. The fact that the spotlight is on it, the game is being, even though, I mean, if you talk to people on the outside, 9 out of 10 people that you talk to have not a clue, or they heard something about GameStop a couple of months ago. They don't really know about it. But I mean, you can talk to most people about any topic, and they're
They
not
believe
really
it's over.
dialed in on it unless they really know what they're talking about. But anybody that deals with the market, and people were talking about international markets earlier, the buy button has never been turned off before, and that's a big no-no. Like that, you don't get away with turning off the buy button. Halts, we all understand halts. There's a reason for that, and that's a market-wide. That's everybody gets a halt. The buy button, when it's done through a couple of they did it once and they got away with it because they did it.
I'm glad they did it though, because
sometimes you do things and you ask for forgiveness, and guess what? There ain't no forgiveness on this one. They're not going to get away with that again.
So
I mean, if they
everyone,
didn't do
we've
that, a
reached
lot
the
of people
point
wouldn't
that
be like.
we're going to need to call an end to this, and maybe somebody wants to host an after party in one of their spaces.
Thinking I was actually just gonna step in and say about a couple minutes ago, 10-minute warning, but I didn't want to interrupt you guys. So officially a 7-minute warning. We're gonna end it soon. But again, like King said, if somebody would like to host another one, you guys by all means, or you can head over to the BullHouse Discord and hop into the voice chat there as well. You're more than welcome to.
Thanks for having me. Have a good night.
Yeah, thank you guys. I really appreciate everyone that's come up here.
Thank you.
And all the great information. Kel, you're probably going to be in my back pocket 100% of the time, just forewarning. And Pawn, thanks for coming up. Andy, insightful. Thank you so much. King, always a pleasure to be up here with you. I'm so glad we were friends. Howie, you've been a thrill tonight. I have definitely enjoyed you being up here. Charlie, you know, he's always excellent and everyone, but I do look forward to seeing you guys again this weekend. As you guys know, BullHouse is now doing four podcasts a week. 2 on Twitter Space, 2 on Discord, unless we have a funny little thing where we do interviews, and then that'll cut into one or the other. We just kind of have to alternate weeks. So, but other than that, great conversation. I really appreciate it. Does anyone else have final thoughts? And you guys got to keep it quick because you have 6 minutes.
I'll talk for a second.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, thank you.
Everyone,
thanks everyone.
Huddle on, and best of luck for the Moaz. Thanks.
So thanks everybody for coming up. Akel, I really appreciate your political perspective on this. That was actually kind of eye-opening from a ground-up perspective. I've never heard that broached in this conversation before, so appreciate that insight.
Yeah, and it's nice to have like other people to talk to about this, because like the people in my life are just like, stop, I don't want to learn anything right now, so thanks.
No,
well, that's what we're here for.
I think for everybody, just to give you a little bit of a nice bedtime story. So 'twas the night before Moaz, and I'm not going to actually make this into a poem, but every single day that goes by, you get to wake up knowing that this could happen. We don't know when, but we do know that it's certain. It's coming. It's going to happen. So everyone here who holds GME, you hold the most valuable commodity on this planet. Congratulations. Whether it's been 7 months, 7 hours, 7 years, maybe some of you are very long term. Maybe if you forgot about the market. But if you just think about this, there's different scenarios, there's different perspectives. I personally don't think that Ryan Cohen and the SEC are going to work hand in hand on this. I have an opposing viewpoint from Howie, which we respectfully talk about privately. But I personally think that Ryan Cohen's fiduciary duty is to the shareholders of GME. And he has to run that company, and he has to find a way to drop all these shorts. And you've got Elon Musk, who was absolutely disgusted with shorts, who tried to bury his company. And now they've been caught with their pants down by a whole bunch of these companies. So you've got a nice big egg basket full of all these companies that are pretty pissed off. And then you've got the people that own these companies, like you, me, institutions. They're pissed off because they tried to put your investment out of business. So what's going to happen? That's the Moaz. And that Moaz is going to change lives. It's going to change the financial system as we know it.
Everything.
100%. And I don't want to leave Conway out.
Mr. Rogers.
Conway, I do see you down there. You left us from up here, but Conway, you are a badass in your own merit, just so you know. But yeah, guys, this is it for the BullHouse.
And don't forget PWN.
And
she fucking rocks.
Yeah. Oh, I called her out too. Don't worry. Everyone that's up here. I got pawn. But yes, no, guys, the panel tonight was excellent. And I'm sure they'll all be back here on Sunday because, well, they're just junkies at this point. So,
we appreciate you guys. Honestly,
wait, we don't have Coke Rep. Damn. So. We
might Kenna, I think just because we do have so many listeners in Europe as well, I think maybe we might have to adjust Sunday time. We'll see.
That's fine with me. But yeah. All right, guys.